Kupros, you can go on mute actually. Good morning, everyone. This is Arun from ng-Kovai. I'm very happy to welcome you all for ng-Kovai virtual event. Let us just start this day by thanking all our beloved teachers, without whom we would not have made a very good living today. So thank you, teachers, and wish you all a very happy Teachers' Day. So before moving on to the event, as a part of my welcome note, I would just like to give a quick introduction to our company, what we are, and why this particular event and things like that. So I will just take first a few minutes before I hand it over to our awesome speakers for the day. Our company Kovai.co was started in 2011 by Saravana Kumar, our awesome speakers for the day. Our company Kovai.co was started in 2011 by Saravana Kumar, who is MVP for last 14 to 15 years now. He started with one enterprise product called Bistock 360, and over the years the company has grown in terms of acquiring a good number of customers and revenue, and we have started investing on multiple ideas, and now we stand at 3 to 4 enterprise products in the market, and now we are branded as Kovai.co, a multi-software product company operating from Coimbatore, India. So the way the company was born is part of networking. So our founder, like 10 to 15 years ago, he was a very enthusiastic technical guy. He always attends lot of meetups in London, and as a part of his regular catch-ups and networking, discussing a lot of challenges with his networking peers, he came up with a small idea of building a prototype for managing Microsoft Bistock server. So that gave an opportunity to build a commercial product and make it a business. So since the company has gone out of networking, the community reach, the networking, and organizing technical meetups has become a part of an integral part of our company and culture. So today we are one of the pioneers in running a worldwide conference on Microsoft integration technologies. For almost 8 to 9 years, we have been organizing boot camps, one-day event, technical workshops, and meetups and virtual events across the world. And today we stand at organizing a premier global conference called Integrate on Microsoft Integration Technologies in both in London and Redmond in US. So it is being attended by technical architects and key decision makers in the technology space from big enterprises worldwide. So every year we kind of get around 400 to 500 participants for this conference, and Microsoft, they send a big army of speakers from their product group to discuss about their roadmap, and networking has been regular happening at Kovai.co. So this year, because of COVID, we organized a virtual event called Integrate 2020 Remote. Our flagship event, which we used to conduct in London and Redmond in person, has been converted into a remote event this year, and we received a very big response with around 1,000 plus paid registrations, and more than 200 to 300 people attending live for each and every session, which has become which received a very good response. We have not only been organizing meetups only for Microsoft technologies. We are not only organizing events only in London and Redmond, but we have been organizing technical meetups in Coimbatore as well as in India. So TechMeet 360 is a technical community arm of Kovai.co, where we conduct a lot of user group meetings, technical workshops, in-person events, and boot camps and things like that. So in the last 6 to 7 years of our operation in India, we have organized around 52 in-person events, 4 virtual events, and Tech Talk Thursdays or something, a new edition in TechMeet 360 user group, which is a very private event for all our employees of Kovai.co. We meet every Thursdays and discuss about all the technical learnings and exchange our knowledge between the peers. So why ng-Kovai? I just wanted to relate how we are using Angular at Kovai.co. So this is our very first product, BizTalk 360. When our founder started this product, it was built on Microsoft Silverlight, and after 2 to 3 years, we found that the Silverlight technology has become obsolete, and the new norm is HTML5, CSS3, and Bootstrap and all those libraries. So then we migrated our product from Silverlight to HTML, CSS3, and for working on this particular platform for around 3 to 4 years. That is when Angular was introduced in AngularJS form, and our next products, Serverless 360 and Document 360, are in line to adapt to AngularJS, and subsequently we converted our products to Angular framework. So today we stand at almost we have got 4 enterprise products, BizTalk 360 now being converted to Angular, Serverless 360, Document 360, and Atomic Scope. All our enterprise products are now being implemented using Angular framework, and now we are a very heavy Angular usage shop. So almost all our products are now being either being upgraded to Angular 9. Some of the products, one of the product is still in Angular 8. We are looking at converting it to Angular 9 and 10. So we are kind of early adopters. As and when the framework is being updated, our technical team is very interested about the latest introductions in the framework, and we try to do some POCs and see how we can upgrade our products to Angular framework. So we have been organizing a lot of technical events to share our knowledge on Microsoft technologies, as well as our coding experiments in JavaScript, Angular, and things like that. Our association with Dhananjay, who is known as DJ in the community, who is very, I am proud to say he's also very famous. He has got around thousands of blogs in his arsenal, and he is very strong in JavaScript. He has been organizing a lot of events and workshops on JavaScript and front-end technologies. We are very happy to have been associated with Dhananjay for more than 10 years. As a technical, our technical team is connected with DJ for more than 6 to 7 years now, and our founder is connected with him for more than 10 years. We have been a regular sponsors for ng India, which is the largest Angular conference in India. So as soon as Google started encouraging Angular conferences and developer conferences worldwide, Dhananjay was one of the early adopters of that particular program, and though he has been organizing a lot of workshops in India on JavaScript, this time he wanted to make it big, and from 2018 onwards, he has been organizing this particular conference in a very large scale. And in the last 3 years, we could see the participants for this event has been growing in numbers, and it is running very successfully. We are happy. We are happy to have associated with him by sponsoring the event. Previously, we were known with our first product, BizTalk 360, as a brand, and we converted our company's brand identity as Kovai.co, which is an umbrella brand selling multiple enterprise products. So in the last few years, Coimbatore and across Tamil Nadu and sometimes in Bangalore as well. So we have been running this event as Angular Day, where we kind of conduct theoretical sessions as well as some hands-on lab activities. And once Dhananjay started organizing this ng India conference, he came up with an idea what about running a small conference in each and every cities of India, like ng Pune, ng Kerala, or something like that. But as a company operating out of Coimbatore, we thought, okay, we can associate with him organizing ng-Kovai, and we kind of organized ng-Kovai last year, which was very successful, attended by around 40 technology enthusiasts in Coimbatore, and we conducted a full day conference with a lot of learning workshops and hands-on labs. This year we are not able to organize that in an in-person event, but we are happy to organize this in a virtual mode, and it also provided an opportunity for us to bring in more speakers, connect with a lot of awesome speakers like Jinal Shah, Nishu Goyal, Pankaj Parker, who are very much known for their technical blogs, sessions, and their content is very well received, and they are being very much followed. And we are also very proud to have a very strong technical team at our organization. Today we will have Hariharan, Kishore, Suhash, who have been working on all these enterprise products I have been listing earlier. So they have a very strong experience in using Angular framework, and the lineup of sessions today, I am very much sure that they will be sharing all their learnings and share some of the best practices and tips for you to get started with Angular. If you have started with Angular, they will introduce some advanced concepts for you to adapt to the latest additions to Angular framework. So with that introduction, I welcome you all to ng-Kovai Virtual. Have a great conference and a great day.
All right. Good morning, everyone. My name is ng-Kumar, and today, next half an hour or 40 minutes, what I'm going to do, I'm going to make sure that you understand how dependency injection and services works in Angular. As Arun, thank you so much, Arun, for such a good introduction. I'm associated with ng India and Geek97, and you can read my blog on debugmode.net. So today, we may not cover all of these, but mainly we would focus on that how singleton and tree-shakable services works, what is the different providing options, and what is difference between providers array and providing options, and if time permits, we would look into services in lazy loaded modules as well. Before I move ahead, I'm going to give you a very high level introduction of dependency injection. If you go on internet and search about it, you'll get like 100,000 record, 100,000 search results, what is dependency injection. But if I put it in a very simple words, what dependency injection says that, let us say that if you need my object inside you, so let's say that to learn Angular, you need Dhananjay's object inside in your learning constructor. Now you have two choices. Either you can create object of Dhananjay inside your learning constructor directly, or you can ask someone else to provide Dhananjay's object to you. Now, why you should not create Dhananjay's object inside your learning constructor? Because your job is to learn. Your job is to not create object of Dhananjay. Maybe there is a lot of complexities around creating object of Dhananjay, and you are not aware of that. Your job is to only learn. So you should not focus your time creating object of Dhananjay. Instead of that, you should focus on learning, and you delegate this task of creating object to someone else, maybe to Arun. Arun is an expert of Dhananjay. He knows how to create object of Dhananjay, and you request to Arun, he would create object of Dhananjay and give it to you. Now it's purely up to Arun whether he would create new object of Dhananjay to provide you, or Arun would reuse existing object which he has already created of Dhananjay and provide it to you. All that would depend on the configuration. So in programming language, when you follow this approach, when you don't directly create object where you are dependent on, you ask someone else to create that object for you. This pattern is called dependency injection. And I'm very sure that you go ahead and learn about it in detail. So dependency injection is very important, and it was coined by a person called Martin Fowler. And he says that saying an application is special because it supports dependency injection is like saying a car is special because it supports wheel. So this definition, this metaphor is very important. Like your car is of no use if there's no wheel in that. In the same way, if you are creating a loosely coupled application, a scalable application, you need to have dependency injection in that. So if you go to the previous technology such that ASP.NET or ASP.NET MVC, they did not understand while creating that framework importance of dependency injection. So what we had to do as a programmer, if we are creating an app in those frameworks, we had to implement dependency injection our own, or to rely on some third-party libraries for that. However, Angular team understands and respects the importance of dependency injection as it is written here. That is, it is as important for your application as a wheel is important for a car. What Angular team has done, they give you support of dependency injection by default. So to work with dependency injection in Angular framework, you do not have to do anything extra. Angular framework supports that as the design of that framework, and only you need to follow certain syntaxes to work with that. So here, to summarize, what is dependency injection? In dependency injection, if you need object of certain class, instead of creating that object, you would ask someone else to create object for you and give it to you, inject inside you, and that someone is called DI container. So Angular is a DI container. You request Angular that, hey, can you give me object of this particular class, and Angular creates it for you and give it to you. So this is dependency injection. Now, how I am going to proceed in this class, that I am a teacher. I teach daily. And when I teach people, they are of experience. They are of like less than 2 years of experience to 20 years of experience. And when I talk to them, when I take interviews, and when I ask them a very basic questions on Angular services, these are the two keywords everyone come up with. First, it's a tree shakable service, tree shakable service, tree shakable service, tree shakable service. So let me first try to simplify this word. What is tree shakable? Now, what is tree shakable? What Angular does, your Angular has, let's say, 100 of components. What Angular does, that it compiles all those components together, and by using Webpack and all those things, and makes a final output bundle. And that final output bundle is downloaded in the browser, and then your browser work on that. Now, depending on how many components you have, how many services you have, how many modules you have, that size of that final output bundle would depend on that. If size of that output bundle is bigger, it would take more time to be downloaded in the browser, and the startup time of your application would be dependent on that. Now, what tree shaking says, tree shaking has nothing to do with Angular. It's a generic software engineering term. What tree shaking says that, hey, if you have created something. Let's say that you have created a service called ABC. And if that service you have created that, you have wrote unit test for that, unit test is passed, the service is created. But if that service is not used anywhere in the application, Angular is smart enough to identify whether the service is used anywhere or not. And if it is not used, Angular would not make that service as part of the final output bundle, such that your final output bundle only contains the code which is being used by the application, hence reducing the size of final output bundle. And that smart service, that type of service which is smart enough to be included and or not included in the final output bundle, depending on whether it is used inside an application or not used inside an application, is called tree-shakable service. Okay, so if you create a service, if it is a tree-shakable service, it would be part of final output bundle only if it is used inside the application. So this is the one keyword you should keep in mind. The second keyword is singleton service. When I talk to people, Angular services are singleton, Angular services are singleton, Angular services are singleton. Now again, singleton is a generic software engineering design pattern word. What singleton says? Singleton says that there would be only one object of that particular class if that class is a singleton class. And very casually and very roughly, when we talk, we like within a minute we say that Angular services are singleton, Angular services are singleton, and Angular services are singleton. Are they really singleton? We are going to find it out. So keep these two things in mind: tree-shakable and singleton. Singleton means there is only one object of that. Tree-shakable means it would not become part of final output bundle if it is not used. All right. So let me now how you create a service in Angular. But before that, why you should create a service in Angular? In service, you create service is nothing but a class, and you put the functionalities, you put the functionalities or code which you want to share across multiple components or directives inside a service. Okay, so these are the steps to create a service. You create a service, you can use Angular CLI command to create a service, then you provide the service, then you inject the service, and then you use the service. Now your whole understanding should be in the step 2, how to provide a service. The whole story goes behind in the step 2. Step 1, step 3, and step 4 is not a big deal. So today we are going to focus on providing the service. All right, so what I have done here, just for the quick demo, enough of talking. Here you see that I have created a Angular application. That Angular application has nothing but two child components right here, child 1 and child 2. Right now they are pretty empty. And then I'm using their child component inside app component right here, app child 1 and app child 2. And as an output, you see that I'm getting here child 1 works, child 2 works. Nothing fancy so far. Also, what I have done in the application, what I have done, I have used Angular CLI to create a service. And here I have created a service called logservice.ts, which is right here in front of you. Now, what next we are going to learn? Let us take a step back for 10 seconds. You understood now what is a service. You understood what is definition of tree-shakable service, and you now know what is a singleton service. Now we are going to see in demo those two concepts, tree-shaking and a singleton thing. Now this is the code Angular CLI generates for you. A scaffold is for you. And when I talk to my developers, when I talk to my customers, I ask them that, hey, can you tell me how many objects of this service would be created? Most of them says that there's only one object which would be created, because if providing is equal to root, it means it's a singleton service. Let's see that in action in a bit. So before that, what I'm going to do here, I'm putting a simple console.log, and I'm saying I am included in the final output bundle. All right, so if you look at here, this line is outside this class. It is not part of the class. Means if this file log.service.ts is included in the final output bundle, we should able to get this console.log. All right, now here in the log service, what I'm doing, I'm going to create a very simple functionality. And here what I'm doing, I'm creating a private static count is equal to 0. So what is static? If a variable is static, it means it would be shared across all the objects. And for that, I'm saying creating a count. And you know that if Angular creates 5 objects of this service, then this constructor would be called 5 times. So I'm going to write some code in this. I'm saying that, hey, log service dot count is equal to log service dot count plus 1. So now you might have understood. I'm just here increasing this count by 1 to measure to identify how many objects being created. Okay, and then here I'm saying console.log, let's say object log service.count. Perfect. So if 5 objects of this log service is created, this should be called 5 times. And we should have 5 object printed due to line number 13. All right. Also, what I'm going to do, I'm going to add one small functionality here. So for that, I'm saying I have a function called say hello, and that takes a string and returns that. All right, now let's go ahead and use this. So to use that, let's go to child component.ts. So here, see, you have done the step 1. Step 1 is creating the service, and step 2 is providing the service. And by default, we have not changed anything, and we are using that providing option to provide the service, which you see in line number 6. Now to use the service, what you need to do, you need to inject that service. So you'll say private log service as log service. So this is the you are injecting that, and then let's say that here I'm saying message at string, and then here we can say this dot message is equal to this dot log service dot say hello, and it is child 1, so we'll pass child 1. All right, and let's take the same thing here and go to child 2 component. Everything would be same, and let's say that child 2 log service, and go to the component HTML. And right here inside H3, we are saying message, and same we will do for child 1. Perfect. So what so far I have done, I have created a service, which I am doing right here. Then I'm providing a service by line number 6. Then I am injecting the service in line number 12, and then I'm using the service in line number 15. Now let's go ahead and run this. And here you see that you are getting hello child 1 and hello child 2. That's perfectly fine. Now let's go to the console, and I'll clean it and run this again. So here in the console, you see that it says that I'm included in the final output bundle. Means Angular has taken that log service and made it as part of the final output bundle. And also it has created only one object of that log service. So your assumption that if you are providing a service here at the root level, it means by default Angular is going to create only one object of that. Means this object is the singleton object in nature. Perfect. So far so good. But what if that's by default? Your answer is correct. But what if I go to child1 component.ts, and every component also has a providers array, and in the providers array I will again re-provide that service. I'm saying hey, providers log service. Okay, so now the same service is provided in the providing equal to root, and then here providers log service. Now let's go ahead and see the output. And here you see that Angular has created two objects, which you can see here in the console, object 1 and object 2. That's why you are getting that output. So the message I'm trying to give you, that when you answer, when you think about Angular service, by default, when you use Angular CLI, that service is a singleton service, but you can override that by configuration. So if you re-provide the service again, either at the component level or at the module level, Angular would create new object for that. And if you believe in simple mathematics, you need to find out how many objects of that service being created by Angular. Just go and check out in how many providers array or in how many providing option that service is being in how many places in the providers array that service is being passed, and that many objects would get created. So that was your learning number one, that don't be blind saying services are singleton, services are singleton, services are singleton. No, my friend, it's not. It depends on. By default, maybe yes, but if I re-provide that, Angular is going to create new objects for that. Now you may have a question that, hey, can you tell me which object would be used where? So the object which is created due to child 1, due to providers array of child 1, this object would be used again by default in child 1 and every child components of child 1. Besides that, everywhere the object which is being created due to providing root option would be used, like in child 2 and app component. All right, so here your our learning number 1 is done. Okay. All right, so here it is. Let's get rid of these providers, and so please go and find out what is the difference between providers and view providers. I have written about it on my blog debugmode.net/Angular. Go and find out. If you know answers of these questions, no one would stop you to becoming a good Angular consultant and developers. Perfect. So we have done up to here. Now what I'm going to do, let's focus our attention back to this injectable providing equal to root. What I'm going to do, I'm going to get rid of this. So I have removed that from there. Okay, and then I'm running this application, and I have removed it from child 1 component as well. And I'm getting error here. Why I'm getting error here, you need to understand. Because step 2 is missing. What is happening that when Angular is compiling this component child 1, Angular is first, it goes in the vice versa. So step 4, okay, it is using that, then it would look for whether it is injected or not. So okay, component, you need that object log service. It is injected, but how this log service would be provided, that information is not given in our application right now. When I say provided, means whether Angular would create new object of that, whether Angular is going to reuse the same already existing object, whether Angular is going to use some another class instead of log service class, whether Angular is going to identify at the runtime it should use log service class or Dhananjay class. All those information is inside, all those into how you are providing that service. And since right now that service is not provided anywhere, even if you have injected that and using that, Angular has no idea what to do with log service. Angular doesn't know anything, so you got to provide that. And you saw that one option of providing was, here we were using providing equal to root. Other option is, again, let's say that I go to app-module.ts, and app module means the main module of my application, and here I am saying log service. All right, so right now I'm doing logs. I'm providing that using the providers array, not using the providing option. All right, so you can provide a service either using providers array or using providing option. Here I'm using providers array of the main module. It means it would be available everywhere. And let's go and run it again. And we are back to the business. Hello child 1, hello child 2, object 1. One object got created. It looks good. Everything is perfect. And again, if you want to create more objects, you can go here and re-provide it in the component level. So how many objects would get created, whether you are providing using providers array or providing option? The behavior is exactly the same, as we just discussed now. All right. Next, what I'm going to do, my friend, is I'm going to comment these lines. All right, so what I have done, I commented that in child one, I'm commenting that in child. Commenting that, what does it mean? That I'm not using the service which I have created. I created logs, it is not used anywhere in the application. So here is a log service, you created that, super fine. And right now application has 3 components. Child 1 component, that log service is not used. Child 2 component, that log service is not used. And app component, of course, that log service is not used. And we are providing that service using the providers array right here into the application main module. Now let's go back and see the behavior here. I'm here. Of course, I'm not getting any output because we are not calling the service. Of course, Angular is not creating any object. See, that message is missing because we are not using. So Angular is not going to create that object. So Angular would create the first object when first time you will use it. Since you are not using it, that object is not created. But where you should put your attention is in this line, I am included in the final output bundle. What it says that even if log service is not used anywhere in the application, just by virtue of having that file log.service.ts, what Angular is doing, Angular is including that file in the final output bundle. And that is the reason you are getting this, I'm included in the final output bundle. It means right now our log service is not a tree-shakeable service. Even if it is not being used, Angular, that service is not smart enough, and Angular is not tree-shaking it, and it is part of your final output bundle. And that's why you are getting it right here. Making sense, everyone? So, but to improve the performance, you may not want that. You may say that, hey, no, I don't want to include a service in final output bundle if it is not being used. So for that, please notice here, right now I'm using providers array of app module and passing it here. I'll get rid of this from here. So I'm not using providers array, and I go to log, we'll go back to log service again. And here I'll say providing equal to root. So I'm providing equal to root. So I'm using the root here. And now let's go back and examine the output. You see that message is gone. So what you understood here, that if you are using providers array to provide a service, that service is not tree-shakeable. If you are using providing option to provide a service, then that service is tree-shakeable. All right. Whenever in doubt, just remember that providers array, not tree-shakeable. Providing option, tree-shakeable. Providing option, tree-shakeable. Providers array, not tree-shakeable. Providing option, tree-shakeable. Providers array, not tree-shakeable. It's not tough. If they ask you in interview, answer this. It is different story that most of the time the people who are taking your interview don't know these concepts, but that's fine. All right. So here you know that providers array not tree-shakeable, providing option tree-shakeable. That's it. How many objects should get created? Many people answer that, hey, providers array would create 2 objects, providing option create 1 object. No. How many objects should get created? You saw that behavior. It would depend on how you are providing that, how many types you are providing that. All right then. So our first learning is done. That is tree-shakeable and providing option and singleton. Now let me show you something very interesting. And I guess that should be you like that. So what I'm going to do, if you are using providers array, let me get rid of this guy from here. If you are using providers array, right here, okay. Actually, internally, this log service is divided into something like this. Provide log service and use class log service. All right, so when the value of provide and use class is same, instead of breaking them like this, you can just pass log service. So here I have broken that. If both value is same, you can just pass log service there, it would work. Now please go back to our step 3 and start working with this. So here I am in child 1, and then let's go back to child 2. All right, so here in child 1, many entry-level developers does this mistake. They think that this log service, what they see here, is actually name of the class. They think that this log service and this log service is the same thing. No. What you see here, log service, is not the name of the class, but the name of the class token. And this log service is actually same as this log service which you are passing in the provide. So how Angular works, when you say that when you injected this token log service, Angular would go and try to find whether this component is provided, whether this token is provided in this component or not. If it does not find in its component, because we don't have providers array here, so it does not find that provide here, it would go to the parent component of this component, and then parent component, and then parent component, so on. And eventually then it would go to the module in which this component is part of. If it does not find there, it would go to the main module. In this case, we are passing it on the main module. So here it would find the definition log service, and it knows that, hey, okay, use the class log service for that. And here you can go ahead and say right here, use the class object 1 and hello child 2, it is doing that. Now it may happen that you want to change this to some other class. So let's say that you have an updated log service. You can change that. You can pass it here. You can say that, hey, let me use updated log service, and that would be used there. But let me give you a real-time use case of this, that when use class could be very handy for you. And be with me. So what I'm going to do here, okay, so let's go back to this app component.ts, and in the app component.html, and I'm giving you the real-time scenario where this use class could be useful for you. And what I'm going to do, I'm here in the app component HTML and putting a button which says that sort data, perfectly fine. And then go to app.component.ts, and let's say that here you have data, and the value of data is undefined. And then here you have sort data. Okay, and in this function you say this dot data and then sort it. And for sure, it would give us error right now because because undefined does not have the sort method. Let me see whether this is correct. Sort data and sort data. Ooh la la. Okay, so let's go and run this application right now. So we are here. We have this sort data, and we are expecting an error. We click that, and we got the error that, hey, cannot read property sort of undefined. So the error which you got right now in front of you is the default. There is an error handler service in the Angular, and that default error handler service is handling the error for you, and that error is thrown to you right here. But what if you are creating an application where you want that you want to handle error depending on your project requirement? You do not rely on Angular error handler service. You want that to handle it globally for the whole application. You want to log that to the server and do whatever you wish to do for that on top of that. So let's see that how we can achieve that. So for that, what I'm going to do, my friend, that let me go and add a class here, and I would call that as global error handler dot service.ts. So here I'm creating a class called global error handler.service.ts. And to create a service, what you need to do, you know that you need to create a first go ahead and create a class. So here you say that, hey, export class, and let's say that global error handler. So here's your class, and to make it service, you need to make it injectable. All right, and we are going to provide it. We are going to provide it at the root level. All right. So now what I'm going to do, this global error handler class is actually going to implement the default error handler, which is error handler imported from Angular core, and this error handler has a method called handle error. And that takes an, oh my dear, error. This live coding has its own fun, and I'm very proud my live coding never failed, but today it may fail. All right, so what I'm doing, I'm creating a global error handler here, and it's nothing but just a service, and we are implementing this error handler, which is the default error handler of your Angular application. And then here you can write whatever you want to write. You can log to server. You can use stacktrace.js to create a stack. If it is routing, then you can use routing to find URL in which page this error came and all those things, right? But we are not going to do any of that such thing. Only what I would say right now, console.log, we will handle ourselves. Thanks, Angular. Okay. So here we are saying that console.log, we will handle ourselves, thanks Angular. This is the polite way to say someone that I don't need your help. All right, this is done. We created this service. Still, we are here. We are saying that, hey, sort data, but still that Angular is helping us. So what do? You go to now Angular app module.ts, and here I would say, I'd add one more entry where I'd say provide here, and then we need to implement, we need to say provide error handler, and here I'll say use class, and which class we want to use. Let's say by default it is using error handler class. All right. So right now when you go and run this, we are here, sort data, it says that cannot read property sort of undefined because we are using the error handler class, which is default. Instead of that, we want to use our class, that is global error handler. So I'm saying that, hey, for the token error handler, so whenever there is an error in our application, Angular would inject this token for that error handler. But we are saying that whenever that token is in the application, please return me object of global error handler. So to Angular DI container, now our application is saying that whenever I request you to provide me an object for the token error handler, return me object of class global error handler. All right, and here we are back. Run this, say sort data. You see that now your class is in action. We'll handle ourselves, thanks Angular. So this was the real use case of use class. You have another options here called use existing, use value, and use. And then use factory, and also how you can do this in lazy loaded routes and all that. But I guess my time is up. I had 30 minutes, 10:15 to 10:45. I guess that was my time. But what I will do, I'll leave you with things where you can go and watch this and learn this. So there's a There's a YouTube channel called Geekman7. If you have not subscribed, go and subscribe that. And in this channel here, if you want to learn in detail about that, there are two videos for you. You see these NG India talk also there from the amazing speakers. And here, if I am not wrong, yeah. So you see that you can see I have done a full-fledged webinar on that. And that webinar is of like almost 90 minutes. So you can go and watch this. And either you can watch that, or if you don't, or if you want good video quality, you can do here. There should be one video for that. High level, how to remove engine webinar services. No webinars. Yeah, here simplifying dependency injection and this is the recorded thing, not the webinar thing. So it is very detailed thing. So watch this, and people has to say a lot good about this. So you can watch that. And if you have any question, here is me. My name is ng-Kumar. I'm an engineer and teacher. I do NG India and Geek97 with help of all of you. You can reach out to me at debugmode@outlook.com. And yeah, and in the below, that's my Twitter handle, debug_mode. For training, for consulting, anything you need help, and if you think I can be a help to you, I'll be very happy to help you in my limited capacity. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, ng-Kovai. Thank you, Arun. Thank you, the whole team. Best of luck to the next speakers, and God bless each one of you. Thank you.
Okay. Hello, everyone. I'm here today, and next 30 minutes, you will be learning that reactive programming with RxJX in Angular. So first of all, thank you so much, Dhananjay, for very insightful demo of like dependency injection, and thank you for Team Kovai for providing me an opportunity to share this with you. So okay, so let me start with what is RxJX, right? RxJX is a term, we can say it is a reactive extension for JavaScript. And initially it was developed by Microsoft, then it was known as RX.NET, and then it will comes to different languages like RxJava, RxPython, Ruby, and RxJX, that is for JavaScript. All right. So as per the definition, RxJX is a library for composing asynchronous and event-based programs by using observable sequences. Now, what does that mean? Think of RxJS as a managed data as it flows through the time. We use RxJX to send HTTP request and we receive the response. Creating the stream of data, the stream is an observable. We can watch it as items are added or emitted. On receiving the data, we pipe set of the data through different operations and transform or filter the data. We can combine two different streams For let us say in today's my demo, I'll be showing you the product and category. So let us say we can combine two different streams like product and categories together to display the data, right? Even we can cache the streams to reuse the data without making another HTTP call. Okay, so another things, why RxJX? When we have callbacks, promises, async and await, right? So callback is a function that we can call back after an async operation is completed, but callbacks are usually difficult to manage when we are working with nested async operations. A promises is an object that may produce a single value sometime in the future. It can handle only one emission, and it is also not cancelable. With that, async and await is a special syntax that will allow writing asynchronous call that looks synchronous. It can also handle a single emission and also not cancelable. Then why RxJX? So RxJX is a compositional, watchful, lazy in the nature, handles the error, even it is cancelable, and one technique to write them all. All right. So uh, another big reason of using RxJS is Angular itself uses RxJX. Somewhat you can say in a routing, reactive forms, HTTP client. At some point, Angular also uses RxJX. All right. And second term, what we are going to see in today session is reactive programming. So as per the definition, a declarative programming paradigm concerned with data and streams and the propagation of changes. So that definition is quite confusing. So we will see what actually reactive programming in the demo itself. These are the few advantages of reactive development. It's quick user interaction, reactive to state changes, resilient to the failure, focus on async data streams, and leverages RxJX operations. Again, this is something theoretical, so we will keep it aside. We will see those things into the action when we perform the demo. All right. So those who are familiar or those who are already using Angular as their in their routine development, they might be using this traditional approach. Whenever simply they want to display some data, what they are doing is they are creating a product class, or you can say an entity which define the product. So here, this I'm showing you the traditional approach first, and then we will move to the declarative pattern, right? So first we need a class or an entity. Then second, we will create the service. Here you can see like we have this get products method. So over here you can see like get products, and it will return us the observable. What we are doing over here is just let us say we are just tap the data to the console, like these are the data we received, and if there is an error, we are calling that catch error method. And on our component, on our ng on init lifecycle hook, we are just like as DJ showed you dependency injection, we are just making an instance of this service over here, or you can say token, and then we are calling that get products method, and we are subscribing to this. All right, and on that destroy, we are unsubscribing. Then on our HTML, or you can say on our template, we are just displaying the record. This is the traditional approach what we are using in our day-to-day Angular application. Now let me just show you how we can achieve that using the reactive approach and RxJX observable RxJX operators, right? So let me just stop this PPT and let me just open up my demo first. All right. So over here, let us just, this is the demo what we are going to see. I'll display some of the products. This is the drop down where I'll display the categories. And for that, I have just created a blank application using that Angular CLI. And let me just give you a walkthrough what I have already created for you. So to save my time, I'm using that in-memory web APIs. And for that, I have this product category, and for that product category, this is my product category will look like. It has ID and name. Then I have this product category data. I have three categories: clothes, mobiles, and electronics. and this is my service. I have already created that skeleton of the service. I didn't created any observable or any method inside that, just my endpoint URLs. I'm just create an instance of this HTTP client. All right, we will create the method over here. Then on my product list, I have created this product service. All right, and over here you can see like I just create the skeleton. This is the URL, and then this is the product data where I'm in like static data. In your case, like it would be coming from the REST APIs, and this is my let us say entity for the product. All right, and this is the component where we are going to display actual product. So this is the drop down area where we'll display all the categories, and this is the product area where we'll display all the products. And over here you can see we have this product component, and it is again an empty one, right? So all right, so let us start creating first the category services. So let me just open that product category service. And over here, usually for traditional approach, what we will do, we will create a method. Let us say get all categories, right? Now, instead of going using that pattern again, what I am using over here is a declarative approach. So what I will be using over here, I'll be using that observable. So over here, I could say, okay, categories observable. So here I would say this.http.get. Again, that's HTTP as an instead of HTTP client, and this will return me that product category type of array. And here I'm making a call to my URL. Now, as I said, we can pipe through the data which we receive, and without doing anything, I'm just using a tap operator to console my data. So here I'm saying like console.log, and these all categories we received. Am I making sense? All right, now I save this, and on my, let us say that product list component over here on my TypeScript, what I'm going to do is I am just making a call over here. So over here, instead of that categories to null, what I can say is this dot, I could say product category service dot, again from that we are returning an observable, right? Or we are just fetching the observable. So I am just returning that observable over here, and inside that even I can go and look I can pipe through that observable, and I can check for the error if there is any error, right? So what I'll do over here, after that I can say, okay, use that pipe operator, and let us, if there is any error, just return empty. You if you have worked with an observable, you know like how to deal with error handling. Otherwise I'll see that in a detail. All right, and now if I save this and let me run it on my browser first, and over here we can say it is we can see it is displaying the categories. All right, like the same way what I'm going to do on my product service. So over here on my product service, we need to fetch the products. Making sense? So over here, what I can do, I like the same way what we have done for the categories. What I'll do over here, I'll just make a call to my product service. So again, here I'll be using this.http.get. It is returning us the product array, and making a call to my product URL. I'm pipe through the data, and I'm just using the tap operator to console my data. Make sense? And now on my, let us say this product list component, where we want to display that products, what I'll do over there, right after that here, I'll just call that product service dot product observable. Making sense? And now if I save this and rerun the application, here you can see we have the products, code, price, and in stock. But you can, here you can observe we are not displaying the categories, because in our product entity or in our product data we have only category ID. We didn't have the category name. Now in this case, let us assume like these both are in different stream, product and categories. Now we want to combine those two streams All right. So observable allows us. So, through the RxJX, we can combine that two different streams together, right? So over here, this is the stream product observable, which is returning us the products. All right. And we have created another service for fetching all the categories inside that product category service. So what I will do over here, I'll use that combine latest operator and I'll name it, say, products with uh, categories. And again, I'm using that $sign to just differentiate that. Over here, I'll be using one of the RxJX operator, and the name is combine latest. All right, there are a lot of other operators, right? So on that combine latest, what I'm using is I'm just using this dot product. So now what is this dot product? Is this observable? So that is having all the products, making sense? And over here, I'm combining it with the all the categories. So here I'm making a call to the categories. Make sense? Now what we are doing over here, we will pipe through the data we receive. So here I'll say, okay, pipe through the data we receive. And now we can use another RxJX operator map to map those data. All right. And inside that map operator, what second thing I will do, instead at some point of time, we just don't only want to merge those two streams, but we want to filter out some records. Like, say for example, we want to display the price, the double of the actual price, right? So what I'm doing over here, I'm using the map operator over here, and inside that map operator, what I'll do, I'll display all the products with the double of its price. So what I have done over here, inside the map, I have, as a first parameter, I'll take products, and second I'll be using category. All right, the first is a product and second is a categories. Make sense? Inside that map operator, I'll be using return products. Now this is the products array, and this map is not an array, it's a let us say the method which is on our array, right? And inside that, I'm using this pad operator. I'm just displaying rest of the products as it is, like product name, product description, in stock on hand, and whatever it is. But for that price, what I'm doing over here, whatever the price, actual price, I just want to show the double of it. Make sense? And for that category to display its name, what I'm doing over here, I'm just using that find method. And what I'm saying, what is the actual ID? Just match it with the products category ID and display its name. Make sense? All right. Then again, I'm using that tap operator to tap whatever the data we received. Make sense? Now here we have created another observable, and the name of that observable is products with categories. Make sense? So I'll save the service first, and now on my product list component, where I am displaying the product observable, there, instead of just displaying only products, here I can make a call to products with categories. Am I making sense? Right? And now if I rerun the application, and let me just open the browser, and you can see the categories are there, and we can have the double of the actual price. Make sense? So that's how the 2 points for the benefit of using of RxJX. Why RxJX, right? So as I told you, like, we can combine two different streams of data. So I have shown you like how you can combine. So it's not the only operator we have with RxJS. We have merge operator, we have merge map, many more other. You can use that. But as of now, I'll show you the combine latest. Then I've shown you like how you can filter out the data. So for that, you can use the map operator, and how you can log to the console or whatever your service, then you can use the tap operator. Make sense? And if you observe on this component on my TypeScript, I haven't used ng-on-init lifecycle hook or any other lifecycle hook. Make sense? That's what reactive approach, or you can say declarative approach. Making sense? So here you don't need to unsubscribe or anything, because again I'm using async pipe over there. Okay, going forward, till now what we have done is we have just displayed the product. Now we have this drop down over here. Now what I want to show you, right now we are just only talking about the data streams. So data streams is what, like, I'm calling this as my data stream. This categories and products, this is the data stream. Now what I want to do is, whenever users select anything from this drop down, like the clothes, I want to display only products with the category name clothes. So I want to do the filtering functionality, right? And for that I have to create the action stream. Right now we are talking about the data stream, and then we have to create the action stream. So for that, what I have already done, I have created the drop downs on change event. So whatever the value we select, I have created that on selected event. And now, as I told you, we have to create that action stream, right? So for that, what I'm doing over here, uh, I'll create, let us say, just a second. On my component, I'll create one subject, or you can say behavior subject. So there are many different other options like subject, behavior subject, and one of them. Like I'll be using behavior subject because it is allowing to initialize while declaring. So in the case of drop down, if we didn't select anything, it should display all the records. And if we select something, it should display or filter out only that records, right? So over here, I have created that category selected subject, and this will be working as my action stream. So then what I'm doing over here, on my on select. So when user select anything from that drop down, what I'll do is I'll be using this dot, let us say, category selected subject, and I'll be calling that next, and I'll be passing that category ID. So over here, I could say that category ID. Makes sense? And now that category ID is my parameter. All right. Then what we have to do is I want to filter out or I want to display only those record which is having that category ID. So over here, we have records with you can say like category. All right. So over there, what I can use that combine latest logic, the same logic over there. So over here, I'll just get rid of this. And over here, I can say combine latest. And from the product service, I'm calling that product with categories array. And focus over here, I'm combining it with the category selection subject. Make sense? And now this category selected action is an our action stream, which is having the latest ID, which we select from the drop down. Again, we pipe through it. Inside that pipe, we use the map operator. And over here, I can use that filter method of array. And I could say, okay, whatever the ID is selected, we should display only those records. Okay, making sense? Now let me just save this, and let me just rerun the page. And over here, now see, we have used that behavior subject. So initially it is initialized with 0. So if we have not selected anything, it will display all the records, right? And now if we select this cloth, it will display only records with the clothes and mobiles and electronics. Am I making sense? The logic will go the same for the add product. So for that, adding new product to the collection, what we need to do is we need to create an action stream for the add product. So on my product service, all right, on my product service, what I will do over here, I'll first create the action stream, or you can say we have the data streams, but now we need to create the action stream, right? So over here, let me just create the action stream. And here, as you can see, I have used the subject, not the behavior subject, because for the adding a new product, I don't need any initial value to give to my observable. Make sense? So that's my action stream. Now, as a second part, we need to create the data stream. As you can see, we have the data stream, but that's for product with the categories. Now I'm going to create a data stream with products with categories, and I just linked that product inserted action. So that whatever the new product we insert, I'll just merge map it with the this. Make sense? And I name this entire collection or data stream to products with add. Making sense? Then again, I'm piped through the data and I'm use that scan operator. And inside that scan, I could say like whatever the products we have, let's just use that with the spread operators and concate the new product or add the new product to the collection. So this is the new product object which we received while adding the data. Making sense? Again, I'll be creating one method like when user press that add product button, that method should be called. So over here, I could say that add product, it will ask for the product. And if we didn't pass any product, it will call the fake product method. And this fake product is like statically, I have created a new product. Make sense? And if you passed any product object, it will insert or it will give it to my observable. Make sense? Now we need to call this add product method from this on add button, right? So over here, what I can do is this dot product service dot add product. Make sense? So now what happens in when we press that button, it will call this add product. Now this add product in turns give the latest product object to my action stream, and then that action stream will be merged with my data stream. And then finally, we need to display this product with add observable to this display method, right? So over here, where we are using products with category, inside that we need to change it with, let us say, products with add. All right. And now if I rerun the application, and as you can see, like filtering also working. All right. And let me just go and press this add product. And here you can see we have added the new product. Making sense? This is how we can use that reactive pattern with RxJX in Angular. So it is not, you can say like only this much of operators in it. Like there are many other operators. You can use them in your daily application. Even you can use that simple share replay operator to just use the cache if you don't want to make an HTTP call again and again. And there are some of the really very good RxJX operators available. You can use any of them in your let us say development. And yeah, that is it. So yeah, my time is almost done. I have the 30 minutes, and I just try to give you an overview about the RxJX and reactive pattern. And yeah, so that is from me. I'm over you to like team ng-Kovai.
Yeah. So hello everyone. This is Pankaj. So thanks. First of all, I would like to thanks ng-Kovai team for having me here and NG India team as well. So thanks Dhananjay, Dinny, Jinal. It was a nice session. So in this talk, I will be speaking about power of Angular forms. So mainly, I wouldn't be having any slides. So this is the only slide I have, and I will be mostly writing a code and explaining things. So what I will be explaining is first is two types of Angular form, the like template driven, model driven, and then one more interesting thing that is generally Angular devs don't use. So I will keep it as a surprise at the end of my talk. So a little bit about myself. I am Pankaj Parkar, senior software engineer working at Deskera. Also, I'm MVP and GD. So that's what about myself. So let's move on to the you know the main session. Let me close this quickly. Yeah. So this is the application that we are going to go over. So as I said, there will be four things. So this will be the form that we will be using throughout. Basically, right now this form is completely created with the help of HTML. Okay, and what we will be doing is we will be converting this form into template driven form, then model driven form, and at the end I will try to cover this type form, which is currently which is a missing feature in Angular forms right now. So let's begin. So first of all, I will tell you I have used material design to just to have a beautiful design and use some of its component. And yeah, so first we begin with the template driven form, how we can do that. So this is a simple Angular code that I wrote. And you can see there are 4 routes, basically basic, template driven, model driven, type form. So same way you will see 4 folders and there is a route for it. So what I'm going to do right now is, so template driven folder, reflect to this template driven route. This is a component. And right now this component is completely HTML component. Okay, nothing else. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to convert this complete form into template driven form. And while doing that, I will explain concepts of form and then, how you can add dynamic validation and all those things related to form. So in Angular is very famous for two-way binding, correct? You can have some variable inside your component TS and then you can reflect it on, put it inside an input box, and once you change it, it will reflect somewhere on the screen. That means binding. So to do that, what I will be doing is inside my my component, I will be having model, and that model will have values. I will just copy it from somewhere. Okay, just to save some time. This dot model is equal to this object, and what this object is, basically, if you can see that this object basically reflects to full name, email, then address 1, address 2 field, and that's all. So that's what we did. Now what we are going to do is we are going to bind this particular model onto the screen, which is nothing but a binding, correct? So so to do that, Angular have a directive called as ng-Model. Okay, and to use that you have to just say, first thing is parenthesis and then say square bracket and then mention what binding you want to apply. So what is it? Model dot full name, correct? And if you save that, you will see that it won't work, because whenever you use any directive or component, it has to be imported from somewhere. Right now our application is pretty clean. We have just imported some I can say some module from this many, like material module, browser animation module and all. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a forms module, which is nothing but Angular form module, and one more module which I'm going to use later, which is reactive form module. Okay, let me see what is the error here. Yeah, see, it was complaining that I know ng-Model, but I got in trouble. Like I know I don't know what is ng-Model. So once we imported the forms module and reactive form module, the error got solved. Okay, now one more thing is there. It is saying the compile time error is saying model.fullname is missing. So since I'm using Angular 10, TypeScript is a little bit more strict about it. So once I add any, it should fix it. So let's see what's appearing on the screen. I'm just moving on to the browser. Okay. Just closing this everything. Oh, there is an error. Let's see. What is it? Yeah. So this is what the first concept of form. So whenever you have any form field that has to be displayed onto the form, and whenever you are ng model, it has to have a name attribute with it. So you have to mention the name attribute. So that name attribute, will consider that particular input element as in form element. So if you consider, let me save and refresh, and I will explain it further. Yeah. So if you look at this particular page is form, and it has a different inputs which are a form fields, or you can say that can be input or maybe checkbox or text area. So over here, this all the form fields are inside a form, but in order to represent them as a form field, you have to provide a name attribute. So that's why the name attribute is kind of mandatory for to mention. So as soon as you do that, and there is no error, but we can't see anything. So just for debugging purpose, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add something on top, which is be just kind of debugging model, put it just pipe JSON, say that, show that on the that JSON object with 2 strings. So we can see it, and as soon as I change any variable, that binding is getting updated on the screen. So cool. Now I'm going to make a changes, same change for other fields, like there is an email input, there is I think text area, address 1, address 2. Yeah, that's it. For now I will skip this part, the language part. If time permits, we will go over that. So I'm just removing that part, and let's rename all of the other attribute, like email, okay, then address, and what else, address 2. Correct. Now what will happen is, since we bind the other values, it will reflect whatever changes we make in the model form, model dot full name and email. It will appear inside, it will change the model of the component. Okay, let's see, is it happening or not? Okay, cool, everything is getting reflected. Okay, that's cool, but we haven't completely used the form feature of Angular template driven form. So what we are missing over here? So basically what we are missing is, you can see that whenever we have to mention it as in form field, we have to mention the name attribute, correct? So what is the use of this? So we will see that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to write something which is ng form, and I'm going to say, sorry, this is not the way, this is profile form, and I'm going to say this is going to be ng form. And whenever we want to submit, of course, generally what happens with our enterprise level application is, whenever we have any form, we on submit button click, we send that updated values to the server, correct? So on click of submit, we have to submit this form eventually. So Angular have an event called as ng submit. So parenthesis reflects to event, and I'm going to call a submit event. And while calling that event, I want to send all the updated value of this form, correct? So what I'm going to do with that is, while sending that, I had done something, which is I said ng form, and then I have put it inside one template variable, which is profile form. So this is one feature of Angular directive, where you can export a directive or component. So right now over here, I'm exporting the form and putting it inside a variable named profile form. So what I can do is, instead of model, if I do profile form dot value. So profile form is representing the profile form, which will have this many fields, and the value will represent the same thing, value of what are the bindings that are getting updated. And let's see what happens. So I just saved it. I'm moving on to the browser side. Before we used to put model here. Now I'm going to say something else. See, now it is the same thing as what we were seeing before, but before it was a model. And right now it is somehow getting full name, email and address to same values, correct? So why is that? So now there is a reflection of name attribute. So name attribute is nothing but it is nothing but a part of form. If you change the full name to full name 1, you will see that this particular value will change to full name 1. Can you see that? Yes. So this can be useful sometimes when you want to get a value from server with different property, and while sending it to the server it should have different properties. So in that case you can use this feature. And of course, as you can see that you can also pass on this value or complete form inside a submit method. So when you click on submit, this button, of course this button has to be a part of a form. If you put it outside, the submit event won't call and it should have a type submit. Wait a minute, it is throwing an error because I haven't defined submit method. So let's do that. Yeah, and yeah, this submit method will get called. So that was a very simple thing. And let's move on to the next part. So how you can put a validation in here. So to put a validation in template driven form, what you will be mostly doing is you will be adding things on the template. Like, see, I added a name, I added ng model. Now for validation also I will be adding, suppose I want to make this full name as in required field. So what I will be doing is I will be adding a required attribute with a binding true. So that way it will become a required. And similarly you can also add pattern and then mean, max length, min length kind of things. So what is the problem? Submit profile form. Okay. Okay, the I think the parameter is missing in here. So let's do that. And we can see the output. Yeah. See, if I don't do anything and if I try to submit, see, it will throw an error. Before it wasn't. Okay. Now this is what you can add validation on each field using attributes. Okay. So again, template driven meaning you will be doing most of the thing on template. Now, what if you want to add a dynamic validation? Like suppose there is a button, mark all fields required. On click of that button, you should be marking all field as in required. So how to do that? So to do that, what you can do is you can define one variable, all field required inside a component, and on click on that, by default it will be false. By default it will be false, and on click on that particular button, what you will be doing is this button, the top button, correct? We want to make sure that on click it should be changing marking all the fields to true. So I just toggle the flag. So how to mark all the fields as in required? So to do that, you can just say add required attribute on each of the template control, and that's it. You are done. And as soon as you see that, it will be reflected. See, for initial level, I don't have to do anything. Okay, as soon as I click on this, you will see that everything become required. So that is how you can add a dynamic validation with the template driven form. And there is one more thing. Generally, if suppose you will ask like, so these are very common validation. What else if I have a very different logic to apply a validation? Yeah, so there is a solution for that. You can add a custom validator. So I have added one own, my validator myself before so just to save a time. So basically you can create a directive. Okay, and you can write just a directive name. But with the directive name, you should mention with what it should be applied, ng model, control name, or form control. And there is some funky thing you have to do, and there will be a validate function that will be handling your validity of your form control. Okay. So I'm not going to cover that. I just gave a heads up. You can also do that over here. And the very good thing about this is once you do this way, the validator way, you can use this validator at both the places, in template driven form as well as in model driven form. Yeah, so that's a good thing. So this is all about, I think, template driven form. I will move on to the model driven form now. So let's open the model driven form. So this is the same form. I will be converting this into the model driven form. So if you see, the route is model driven, so I will be opening model driven.html and model driven.component.ts, sorry. And same way, now we want to convert this all the form into model driven form. So what will be happening is, in model driven form there are three concepts basically. One is form control, the other one is form group, and third one is form array. So what is form control? So as I explained you earlier, whenever any field appears on the inside a form, it is a form field and also known as form control. So each field over here is a form control, full name, then form control. So you can consider this whole profile form as in form group. Okay. And what is form array? Form array is a collection of entity which is keep on repeating. Okay. So over here, I'm not going to cover this example, but languages is the guy which basically when you click on add, it will add one more language option where user can select a language and its fluency accordingly. So let's begin. I'm going to skip for now the languages part just to save some time, and also I have to cover the type based form at the end, so that's why. And now let's do that. So what I'm going to do is, as I said, I'm going to have a form group. Sorry, the user profile is kind of form group which is having different form control, correct? So we will be creating one profile form. Okay, and that form will be of type form group. Okay, nice. And form group will be imported from Angular forms, and we will be calling one function build form, and that build form will be like defining what is it. So when you define a form group, you can call a new form group method, and which will be a function basically, or a class, and that will accept an object, and inside the object you can mention what attributes are there. So for just to save a time, I will just copy it from here just to avoid typos and all. Okay, yeah. So in here what I did is I can mention 4 control, because I have a 4 control, and as I said, each control is nothing but what? Form control. So you can do that quickly. So I'm going to add the form control against each of the element. Nice. Now this is very simple. So did you see the difference? Mostly we will be writing a code inside a model, inside a component when it comes to model driven form. But yeah, we have to somehow tell the template, like you have to somehow map this profile form group object onto the screen, correct? So for that you have to use a couple of directives. What are the directives? So basically on form tag, what you will be doing is you will be saying that there is a form group which name is profile form. Oh, sorry, profile form. Nice. And as soon as you do that, Angular understand that I should refer to this profile form, and I can have this many 4 fields I can look up for. So just to say that this full name is refers to this form control, what we have to do is you have to just use single directive name as form control name, and that form control name will be full name. Okay. Similar way, what you can do is for email, also you can do that. For text area also you can do that, and then the remaining field which is address to. And quickly I will change the text of them, address. Okay, and what else? Address to, I think so. Yeah, let's save it and let's check on the browser what happens. It should work. What is the problem? Form group expects a form. Oh, sorry. So there is a catch. I created a function but I haven't called it. So quickly let's call that. Yes, so it should work, I think. Yeah, awesome. So as soon as you do something, there is no error, but we are not able to verify is it really working or not. So let's do one thing for debugging. Like what we did before, same thing you have to do. Internally, even though if you use model driven form or template driven form, internally they represented as the same object. What they, even though the type is different. So similar way I did profile form dot value here. And let's see what happens. So it started showing the values, and you see you can do this thing. Now let's come to the validation part, how you can add a validation. So you must be thinking, should I do something here? Before we added a required attribute and other max length, min length attribute here. So for model driven form, you will be mostly playing around with component.ts. So to do that, adding a validators, maybe a required validator, you just have to pass the second parameter for your form control variable. The first parameter is nothing but the default value. Suppose this can be Pankaj Parker, and then if you add a validator is required, it will be treat that particular control as in required. Let's see what happens. So see, as soon as you do something, you just remove something from here, and address and form full name became, a required, kind of required. So that's cool. So this is fine. So let's come to the part how you can add the dynamic validation. So to do that, what you can do is, I think I have 10 minutes. I can quickly show that. To do that, where I have added a mark all field requires function here. So let's quickly add a function mark all fields required. Okay, and from that function, what we can do is we can just get hold of this this particular object form is form dot dot controls will be having all the controls, then for each, and what I'm going to do is each control will have a key only. So what I will be doing is this dot see, I would say const. I will explain the logic. I will quickly write it down first. So basically, when I say object.keys and when I say controls here, it returns all the full name, address, and address to email form control object. When I say object.keys, I will just grab the keys of each of the object, and now I'm going to get that object, that particular control, and I'm going to say that set validators of that particular control. So set validator is a function where you can dynamically set the validator, which is nothing but an array. So I have to pass an array, and I can just say that mark it as a validator true. So this is not enough. What you have to else do is you have to also say that just update the validity of form. Otherwise, it won't reflect on the form directly. Okay. So for the sake of seeing it getting reflected, I'm just removing the address validator. Let's see it in action. As I can say submit, I can where is save. Address is not required, correct? Yeah, this is model driven, correct? Yeah, address is not required. So as soon as I click on mark all field, see, you can see all errors here. So this is how you can add the dynamic validation, and you want to go further and add validators which could be custom. So you can add a validators dot compose function for synchronous validator, where you can in compose you can write your own function that can be handle the validity, or otherwise if you have asynchronous thing, then you can use compose async. Yeah, but in case of async, you have to use the other array which is used for asynchronous validator. Okay, so far so cool. I will be not covering the other part, which is form array. So that is pretty simple as that of this. There are little bit catches, but I would left it up to you. So I'm going to cover the last part, which is very interesting. So type form. So right now, do you see any problem with the model driven forms? Yeah, there is a problem. So suppose you want to directly get a hold of full name field, okay, or suppose you want a value of profile forms full name, okay. So let's see. Suppose I am just doing profile form dot value dot full name. Oh, I don't know what is happening. I cannot really, I mean, we can easily do mistake over here, correct? Because TypeScript is not allowing, because when we define our form, we just specified it as in like, just a key, nothing else. Also, if you want to get a hold of form control, when you type something and just say, okay, it works. It does not throw any error. Ideally, what should have happened is it should only allow the 4 values. So this was a major missing feature and most requested in Angular. So there is one guy called as Nathaniel Basel who did something for this, and I will show you how you can convert your all the forms in that way. So to do that, you can install a package called as ng-Neat reactive forms package, just by saying, I just installed it to save some time, just by saying ng-Neat. Where is that? ng-Neat install, I think. Okay. And then to migrate to a reactive forms library, what you can do is you just have to call this particular, what I can say, this is a migration script, or you can say a code mod that have been written. So as soon as you do that, what will happen is it will automatically migrate your complete forms to use the reactive forms. So I will tell you the feature of it and why it is needed. So you have to answer is one thing, like my complete code is inside src app, which is generally happens. And after that, it shows that what files have been modified. So you can see that somehow it modified a few things. Earlier, the form group and form control used to be imported from forms, but now it is imported from form group. Okay. And there is no error at all. Okay. So what change happened? Did anything stopped working? I don't think so. Wait a minute. Did anything stop working? No. Let's put something on top. We are now, and right now we are using, I think, yeah, we are only using model driven form only. Directly I will modify it here to just save some time. Okay, see, I changed something, everything is happening. Now what change, what benefit we are going to get out of it? So as I said before, there was no thing which is type in here. Can I get something? Right now I cannot, but yeah, wait and see the magic. Now what I can do is I can define an interface. Okay, an interface may be a profile, then I can mention few things in here, this thing only. Okay, and I will quickly change this to string, sorry. Okay, and I'm going to use this profile from just in here while defining, the way we pass the generic type in generics. So I just said like, yeah, profile form is nothing but of type profile. And also you have to make sure one more thing, when you defined it, also make sure that it is also here as well, otherwise it won't work. So you did that, and let's see the magic now. When you say that, see, you will start getting those typing related thing directly. You won't be making a mistake as such. You will be catching this kind of mistake upfront only. Yeah, not only that, but you can also do this thing, profile form dot get. So in get I can mention any string, correct? So let's try to do something like full name. Okay, full name is there or not? Let me see. Okay, full name is here, but if I, yeah, okay, sorry. With get method, it will work fine, but if you want a typing feature, you have to use a get control method. So if you do, it will work as same as that of dot get of form. But if you try to do something else like full name, suppose I made a typo, full name, so it will directly tell you upfront that see, these four types of field can be exist and you can use one of out of it. And apart from that, you can use all the field as in observable. Suppose you have to streamline something in your form, like suppose this form value is supposed to be used somewhere else, so you can say profile form value dollar for string, then this dot profile form. Yeah, I will just take 1 more minute, not more than that. um, and just say this, sorry, just say this, and after that what could happen is, of course this is going to be subscribed, so whoever is going to get this stream, they will see that this many options. Yeah, so this is very interesting thing, and you will find a very good improvement by having this package inside your project. Most of the the TypeScript related thing will be handled, and you will get a typed form inside your project. So that is what I have. And yeah, that's it. I hope you got this. Type form feature is feature that was very interesting. Yeah. So I think I'm done.
Yeah. Hi everyone. Hi, I am Hariharan. So I'm working as a software engineer in Kovai.co. So today we are going to talk about streamlining your code reviews with a tool or npm plugin. So before I start, everybody who are working on developers would have faced these challenges that I will be mentioning earlier further. So if you are someone who's facing these challenges, feel free to try these out. This definitely helped our team to improve the productivity as well as maintaining the code quality across. So the first thing is coming to code quality, the syntax and formatting. So this is the main thing that we as developers, we need to follow strictly, and we need to agree on a common set of formatting rules, each of us. So let's say if there's a function and there's a bracket, and some developers would like to format it with a bracket on the first line, and some developers would like to format it on the second line. So this is where the conflicts arise, and we spend unwanted time on discussing about using two spaces, which is four spaces, using spaces or tabs, those kind of things. And second thing is when it's coming to next thing is code quality, using of deprecated functions or APIs, following best practices and while writing TypeScript. Since as developers, we need to only focus on functionality first, the product first. And the thing that we are working on, we definitely, we don't know what we write is is this the best code, this possible code that we can write? Is this the industry best standard, or is this something that is deprecated? We don't know, right? So this is where the tools linters and VS Code extensions come in place. When you type it something that is deprecated or wrong or can be Hari. Sorry guys, I just lost power here for the internet. So continuing on the usage code quality, after that, like using of deprecated functions. So while writing code, we need to focus on the product aspect, right? So we definitely cannot know is this something that is deprecated, or whatever we write is the industry standard following. So this is where like tools like ESLint and the VS Code extensions help us. Like when we write something, and it helps us instantly by showing a warning that this is not something that is followed in the industry, so we can change it. So why is this important? So we'll see it in the next slide. So let's take this simple example. So when we write Angular code, or any set of code, any code. So take the simple example. So let's say like we have 3 developers, and 3 people tend to rely on 3 different formatting approaches. So developer 1 formats like this, the first template in the leftmost, and the second guy uses this, and the third guy uses this. So what happens in the long run? So this is just a simple one-line code, and even if you push this code one line to the repository by having 3 different formatting things, all 3 people who are working on this will get conflict. When you pull latest code from the repository, every 3 person that is working on this will get conflict that something is changed here. So what happens like when you're working on enterprise application where 10 people working on same feature or multiple features, and people tend to change things on the long run. Like when you work on a task, like it may take a week, and then after a week you might have like 100 changes. And imagine like 5 people working on a team decided to use 5 different formatting approaches, and they push code randomly to the repository. So what happens? This will go on a cycle, and all 5 people will get conflicts, and resolving conflicts is a bigger task than writing code, right? Imagine resolving conflicts on 1,000-line HTML code, and having conflicts in every line. So this is a nightmare. So coming to linting. So linting, what is linting? So linting is the automated checking of source code for like programmatic and systematic errors. So this is just a tool. Like it's a developer dependency tool. So this is nowhere going to production, or your app does not directly depend on it to running on production. So this is just a static tool, and it will analyze your tool on the runtime and on the fly. You can also set up it in the CI/CD pipelines on the Azure DevOps or a GitLab, etc. So you can just it's just a one-line command, and it will scan your code, all the JavaScript, TypeScript, HTML files for source code errors and programmatic and syntactic errors. So the why we did it is the major thing. So imagine we are having multiple junior developers on the team, and they were not agreeing on the formatting standards, and we need to focus on one thing. Like the priority is the shipping the product. So we should not fight or argue on formatting rules, that whom should we follow, what should we follow. So this is why every company does it. Like if you search for Airbnb coding standards, they have it. If you search for Microsoft, they have it. If you search for multiple Fortune 500 companies, they are having the same configuration on their developers repositories. So to keep everybody working on the same page, and they save time in code reviews. So how to do it? It's just a straightforward thing. So you need to pull some packages based on the project that you're working on. Let's say we as Angular, Angular tends to use TSLint by default. So we need only 2 packages like Prettier and ESLint. So why ESLint? So ESLint is just an advanced version of TSLint, because if you check the TSLint GitHub repo, TSLint will be deprecated in December 2020. So which is why they advised, in the report, so they advise everybody who is trying to achieve something with TSLint migrate to ESLint right now, so you can save same time in the future. So if you go to your angular.json, so each angular.json file will have a linting built in. So the Angular schematics will be using the built-in TSLint linter by default. So what we need to do is we need to change the builder to use Angular-ESLint, and you need to provide it at a config. So how can we do it? Once you install npm ESLint, you just create a ESLint config, So and then point it to the builder. So with this one line of code, it will install Prettier, it will install ESLint, it will install ESLint along with Prettier, and it will install a plugin which is like a bridge between ESLint and Prettier. So Prettier is just for like the formatting, code quality, single space versus double space, tabs versus indents, those kind of things. ESLint is for like more like the advanced JavaScript usage, like using arrow functions, using brackets, and avoiding commas after your arrays, and exporting const unnecessary, using where, using let, so those kind of things. So there are like multiple npm packages that needs to be pulled, like around 6 packages needs to be installed, like and Prettier plugin organize imports is just like add-on, like you can ignore it. So other things are like mandatory if you want ESLint to be working along and nice and cool with the Angular projects. So why do we need ESLint? Why can't we use TSLint? If you ask, like as I said earlier, like TSLint is the default Angular standard, so it is going to be deprecated in December 2020. So it's better to switch to ESLint. So these things are like so somebody might be thinking like, why should I add 6 packages to my package dependency? So what happens to my package bundle? So to be frank, like this is nowhere dependent on your application. So this is not going to your production build or your prod build. So all these packages are will be falling under dev dependency. So if you look at the package.json file, we'll be having we'll be having two kind of dependencies for your project. So let me switch the screen to Visual Studio Code. Yeah, I hope you can see Visual Studio Code.
Yeah, yes, Hari.
Yeah. Okay. So if you look at the Angular's package.json file, so the dependencies are split into two. So the first thing is like the dependencies for your main project, and the second developer dependencies is the dependent packages that are only dev dependent, which means like only until your app is until your app is prod built. So these dependencies will be living in. Example like the Angular CLI, Angular compiler CLI. So this is where like the ESLint, Prettier, those kind of things fall in. Let's go through a quick demo and see how it benefits us. Imagine like currently, like if you check the project, like I have already added the Prettier package, and then we have a we will be having Prettier config file. So it's just a JSON file. Here you can config your necessary things. So these are just like the common standards which are recommended in the Prettier forum itself, Prettier documentation itself. So you can even customize it, like use tabs, false, tab width, and print width, those kind of things. You can play around and change it. There are like multiple configurations also for React projects, like you can use single quote instead of double quote, those kind of things like also are available for it's not only specific to Angular. Prettier works for any language that you can write code at. So let's go to our app.component.html. So what is this? Is like this just a simple new Angular app. So if we compile this, like we'll just get a hello, welcome to Angular app. Okay. So let's delete this and let's write like let's write something. So div and then hello. Okay. So if you say I just saved the file, and if you see, like it automatically went to the top line. Why? Because like we have Prettier. So now if I let's say like there are like multiple lines of code, and multiple developers are working on it, and they write code endlessly, and they forget to format, or they do something like this. Okay, unless there is an error, Prettier will okay. So they format it like this. So what happens if I now save the file? So these are just like useless, right? Prettier will automatically format your code to make it look like. So even if some developer tries to force format something like this, welcome to ng-Kovai. And what happens? Prettier will automatically format it back. So this is where like the awesomeness of Prettier takes place. The same goes to ESLint as well. So when you write Angular app, so imagine like if you look at the Prettier configuration, we put single quotes as false, which means like we need to use double quotes everywhere, and we should not use single quotes. So when I save this file, the single quotes, even if I write single quote there, hi, and then even if I write single quote, when I save the file, it will automatically convert it into double quotes. How's that? It's cool, right? So this will avoid the conflicts between developers who are fighting for formatting standards in your code base. So how do we validate it? So let's say like how is this happening? So if we look at the VS Code settings.json, like we'll be having editor dot format on save is true. So when you format and save option is set to true and the default plugin is set to prettier, it will automatically format it. So what happens like if someone had it false? If someone had it false, like if it saves, like it will still be remain single quote. But is this a problem? No, this is nowhere related, nowhere causing a problem. So let's say like I go ahead and let me commit this file to our repo. Okay, so let's see the changes that we have now. So we just have removed everything from here, and then we have added a single quote instead of double quote. Okay, so if we now go ahead and commit this file to our repo, okay, now that I have committed the files to the repository, and then now if we go to our repo and check the pipeline, it will be running right now. So or like we have a new commit. So we just committed it. So we will be creating a new pull request for it, right? So when we go ahead and it says like you just updated it right now. So let's say when we create a pull request and let's say like welcome to ng-Kovai, and then let's create a pull request. Okay, so currently like it needs some approvals, and we need to see if our pipeline is getting succeeded here. So what happens is like when we go to our pipeline and we need to trigger it, like make it trigger on every pull request. So on the triggers configuration, you just have to add your pull request for it, or like for now like let's go ahead and merge it. So let's go ahead and merge it, and so that like it will run the code. So we have a new pull request on our repo, and when we approve it and let's say like we go ahead and complete. So this is now going to be merged to master. So now that the code is getting merged, so if we go to our pipeline, our pipeline is automatically triggered because like we have it the trigger set for master branch only. So imagine like working on a large repo, we will be setting the triggers for all pull requests. So if we go and look at our steps, so we are just doing npm install, and we have a step to validate the coding steps. So once the npm install is complete, so this will make use of prettier to validate and see if the coding standards are followed properly. If not, like the build will fail and the code will not be pushed to the repo. As you can see, like the style validate coding style step failed. So if you scroll up and see, it says like code style issues found in the above files, forgot to run prettier. So it says like what are the files that is failing the formatting standards, app.component.ts and the or index.html. So yeah, so this is how like this is just a simple workflow to better make use of the development process. Yeah, so that is all about it, guys. So I think I'm done. Yeah.
Okay, hi guys. So this is Kishore Kumar. So I'm working as a senior software engineer at Kovai.co. So today we are going to look at the pre-catching with Angular service worker. So before saying what is a service worker, just show me that like in the simple example where it is work. So this is my sample application I have created. So it is nothing new. I just created with the Angular CLI engine new, the app name, service worker demo. You can see nothing is bigger than, right. I just added welcome to ng-Kovai and the application name is so nothing is new on that part, and you can see everything is like, and so the thing is like with an service worker is it will just act as a catch. So I will show how it will work. So let me demonstrate one thing. Like for example, if I just put the network as an offline and just to reload the page, so you can see that like the dyno comes with a no internet option and a error internet disconnected. However, with if we enable the service like a service worker, the page will show the contents because since it is catched one. So let me show how it is happening like that. So for that, so I need to add a package. ng-add PWA. So the PWA stands for an progressive web app. Since like Angular makes the service work is a part of a program progressive web app, we are just going to see how those things are. So we are just going to see two things here. One is how service workers catches the request and how we can make use of the progressive web app as a native application. So it is getting installed and it is just creating some files here. Yeah, so it is installed. So if you see the changes here, like it is just added and manifest.web manifest file, then ngsw.config file. And in the app module, it just added a new module called service worker module. So with this only we are going to achieve the service worker here. So you can see that the service worker is getting registered with that file name called ngsw worker.js, and it is the enabled production environment. So to see how it is working, we just need to do an like in production build, since the service worker won't work on a Dev server. So I'm just sorry, I'm just doing an build here. Like since it is an Angular 10, I just compile the package as a like ES 2015 or CMS15. So here I'm going to run this like in a production distributed ready file with the help of one of the tool called HTTP server. So if you see that the tool, like it is one of the most popular tool where you can run your server similar to an IS Express in Visual Studio. You can run as an isolated tool here. So I already installed this tool. Like you can install it, use it like npm install global HTTP server. So let me just install the tool. Sorry, let me just run this thing. So HTTP server, and I'm just going to point to the package. Like for example, when I build the production, when I do the production build, it will just create a folder. You can see it is just created the distributed folder service workers with those like all those kind of stuffs what is need to ready for the production build. So let me run the HTTP server here. dist slash service worker demo. And defaultly it will run on the port 8080. So if you want to configure, you can set the port using that port command. So I just set it as 4200 for sake of the running the default Angular thing. So if I just reload the page, it's just running from that like a build server. So right now it is not running on that normal development server mode. So let's say one thing I can do, I can just make it as an offline. See what happens here. So you can see that it is getting like a no internet thing. So it is getting like a download all those requests from the main server itself. So once we do the refresh, and let us check what happens. So here in under the application, you can see that it will. Okay, I think it is not picking that HTTP server. Let me do one thing. So defaultly what happens is like when we install the service worker, what it will do is it will just create those set of files here. So this is like an ng Angular service worker hyphen worker.js. So if you look at that file, what will happen is this file will contain a set of configurations. So you can see that it has that like an asset groups and other things called like assets. So you can see that two things are here: install mode and like a prefetch. One is for application, so application related files like JS, CSS, and the HTML files, and another is for an assets like the what are the images or any static files we are going to serve. So it will just serve from that. So let me run this one. Let me try to run this with the default like port. So we'll see what happens. So it's just running from a localhost 8080. Okay, I can see some problem like the service worker is not working here. Like it needs to show that service worker here. Here you can see that like some of the older apps have like the code sandbox IO. Some of the apps are using service worker as a begin. So let me switch to other app. I don't know why it is not working here. So I already have one of the sample apps. So let me open that one. Let me do an ng build here. So you can see that similar file things are here. The ng-config.json, so all those things. So we'll see it later what it means. So I just do the ng like production build. So let me run it here. So you can see that so it is running that different tab. So Angular service worker. Something is happening. It is not picking up the Angular. Think okay. Let me do one thing. The index. Let me close the browser and open it. Actually, it should show that service worker here. I think some problem with it. So what it will do is it will just show that similar to these files, it will show the service worker here. And so all those files will be get cached here and it will work on that. So let me try to run from other browser. I'm facing some strange issue here. Like Actually, it is detecting that manifest file, but it is not able to. So like so I just want to say, so I cannot show you the demo, but I will show us. I will just say what are the things will happen. Like it will just create a service worker like this, and it will show this service worker similar to these things. And what it will happen is it will just store in the cache storage. So here I don't have any like service worker registered, but it will just show stored in the cache storage. So all those files will be stored here, and this manifest file is used for like an installable app. So let me show it like one of PW like an Angular.io itself. So if you can see that you are seeing right that installed Angular documentation. So it is one of so it is a service worker enabled app, and you can see that service worker here, like similar to that, it will show in localhost also. So it will show that like a service worker is registered here, and it will catch all those files. So you can see that the service worker storage here, right? So if in the files, they have catched that files with the help of like an assignments, latest manifest. So all those these files they have catched here to show us similar. So similar to that in our code. Let me open and show only the code. So what it will happen is, so in the ng-Config file, the assets groups are used to like the as I mentioned before, the assets group has two things. One is called like an app, and another is called asset. So it will these things will load at the initial mode itself. That's why they have make it as install mode. It's a prefix. So when you start the application itself, it will just load the background. Whereas this install mode is called lazy load. Like what it will do is only if it is needed, it will just load those files here. So these files are stored, and similar to this assets group, we can also have a data group here. So where we can catch our API paths. So similar to that assets group, you can just mention the name, like and what are the APIs we need to catch. So here you can see that the catch config here, the name. So what is the name? So you need to mention the group. So it will group all those catched files. So what are the URLs need to be catched? So, and we can mention the version. And here we can make the catch config option. So whether it should be, how long the catch should be in. So whether it should be there for 30 minutes or 50 minutes, like that we can mention here. So this manifest, that web manifest is a file where they are used for the PWA thing. So you can see, right? So in the Angular, they are just to show that install app. So when we click on install, it is just open it and separate like in web app. So you can just get the field of a native app. So with like an extra toolbar hits. So you can see that all the app info, like a URL, all the icons here. So you can see it here in that Angular documentation it is installed. So I already installed Angular app, so I can just show it here. But right now the demo it is not working, but it is already pre-installed app. I can show that that welcome to ng-Kovai, that service worker, everything you can see. So what are the things you can see on a normal web browser? You can able to match it the same thing with the help of a PWA here. So those are the things are configured inside that manifested web app manifest. So you can see that short worker, the theme color of an app, background color, and they just mentioned the icons with the different sizes. So you can customize with whatever the things here. So these are the things like these are kind of an icons. All those things are coming from that manifest files. So they just configured and display standalone, and another mode is isolated. So yeah, this is like a simple thing I can show with a service worker. So just with a command of single command of ng add angular pwa, you can be able to achieve all those service worker thing here itself. So what is a service worker means? A service worker is just like a script that runs in a web browser and manages caching for application. So it is the simplest one-line definition given in the Angular community. So the design goals for the service workers is it should be act as a native application. So you can see that right with that like a PWA app, you can see all those things are working similar to this native application. So when you click it is just opening all those thing here. So this is a thing that they are mentioned, and the running application continues to run. So what it will happen is with the help of the ng app config, so all those cached files will store in that cache storage. So whenever we do a new build or new release, the this ng-W service worker configure will take care of those things, and it will just check whether any new update is coming, and if the update is coming, it will just update in the background, and when you reload the page, it will just start serving from the newer thing. So one caveat here is like service worker only works on HTTPS mode, so it won't work on like HTTP mode due to the security measures. And also another thing is that on the service worker is not a new thing. It just available from Angular 5 itself. So I just recommend you to go and try check it out by yourself. So like so that's it from my end, guys. So sorry from that I couldn't show you that demo from an localhost, but I just I think I had covered what is meant by service worker with the help of other apps. So similar to that what I have shown. So you can see what are the apps already have installed and using the service worker with the help of this here. So if you just see, you can see that going to service worker from other origins, you can see what are the apps are registered from this here. Like you can see that lot of apps, since whatever apps I have consumed, with service worker it is just installed from the background. So you can see that it is like if you with the help of that thing, you can push sync period of sync app. Most of the things you can able to achieve like in a mobile app using the service worker here. Yeah, that's it from my end.
Okay. Okay. All right. Hi, everyone. Thank you very much for joining ng-Kovai. And I'm really excited to see many people participating and, attending the talk on a Saturday morning. So I'm going to be talking about the power of web apps today. And this will involve like some coding to get, the demo of what we are trying to, what we are going to discuss. And we'll also look at different designs and how responsive designs work and what is PWA. A lot of it has already been covered by the previous session by Ashok, and we'll still try to see what are the different aspects of it when we are doing it in Angular or with web components. So yeah, before we start, a bit about myself. I work as an engineer at a company called the DataWorks, and most of my focus revolves around the frameworks Angular and React. And I'm also a Microsoft MVP and a Google developer expert in web technologies and Angular. I usually write code blogs, blog posts, and if you're like interested to read about any of the topics, you can go visit those and read about those, and or just contact me if you have any doubts or if you find something wrong in my blog. So yeah, my session today looks mostly like this. I know you can see a lot of abbreviations there, but I've kept those on purpose, and I want to keep a surprise, like till the till until when we reach that topic actually and start discussing those. So I'll not give out the full forms of these. If you know, great. If you don't, then let's explore this together. So yeah, we'll start off with the introduction of what we are going to talk about today. What is this? Okay, I was going to take the full name, but I'll not. So we'll discuss what is RWDs. We'll discuss what are PWAs, what is offline rendering. We'll then have a look at web components and how we can use those with Angular elements, if you've heard of. And finally, have a look at the demo and see how we can actually build an Angular custom element, an Angular web component. Right. So to start, let's have a look at how the web exists currently. And if you're a web developer like me, you would know that currently the web is all componentized. When I say componentized, it really means that, as you can see in this image that I've attached here, right, that a website is not actually like this one page for which this whole HTML is coded and that appears on the screen, but it's actually a set of web components. You build some part of the website as a component, use it here, but you're sure that you might need something like this cup that you see here on the laptop screen. You might need something like this on the cart page also, for example, the shopping cart page also, right? And you decide to build it as a reusable component because that's not a smart way to deal with it if you're coding the same thing again in the cart component also, in the cart view also. So the web is all in two components right now, and we break these into as smaller pieces as we can. Either it is a container component or a presentational one. So the idea is to break it into smaller pieces and maximize the reusability of our application or of our the code that we have written for the view. Now, as you can see, the view which we have in the laptop screen, the desktop screen, we would have the same for in an iPad, for example, if you're using an iPad, and we would want to see the same thing in a mobile also if we are opening it in the browser. And that's where responsiveness comes into picture. Whenever we are developing any web applications, responsiveness is a major aspect of it now. Like earlier, we would not, focus on it much. We would just build it for the desktop. We would see that if it fits the screen, it should not overflow. It should not, no two elements or no two components should overlap. That's what we would focus on otherwise. But now, since we focus on responsiveness a lot, we have to ensure that whatever component we are building looks fine in a desktop screen, looks fine in a iPad screen also, looks fine in a mobile screen also. And when we talk about mobile also have different dimensions, right? For example, an Android phone or an iPhone. So you have to ensure the responsiveness. And that's where the first abbreviation that I had in my previous slide comes from. That is RWD, which is responsive web designs. So if we want to discuss this, let's go to one example and then discuss this. And before that, whenever you're working on responsiveness, right, your idea, your approach towards it should be the mobile first approach. And what does that mean? So let's take an example of a website that you're building, and you make it like seamless and pixel perfect on a desktop screen. However, when you look at the same website in a browser in your mobile, it doesn't appear to be very very user friendly. It's a bad UX that you see on the mobile. Now that's when you think that, okay, let's go ahead and make it mobile responsive also. Let's make it for mobile also, so that whenever the user is not on a laptop but he's opening the website on his phone, he should be able to see it as pixel perfect as he was able to see on the desktop. And now imagine the way you built it the first time when you did it for the desktop, and now you have to do it for the mobile. Would you have to rewrite a lot of things? Would you have to just, write a lot of extra code, which would result in like, equal effort or maybe around equal effort to building an app for a mobile, right? So that's where this idea comes into picture, that you should use mobile first approach. So whenever you're building, whenever you've decided that I'm going to go and build a responsive web application, the first idea should be to look at the mobile pixel perfect ness of the website. So first you check it in the mobile. If it looks great, then the next step, which is an iPad, it should appear well there, if that is your requirement. And finally the desktop. So it should always, we should always go from mobile to iPad to desktop to ensure that responsiveness is taken care of. And if, like I gave this example before, if you go for a laptop or a desktop, responsiveness first, and then decide that, okay, let's do a mobile version of it also, then it might not, it might be a bit difficult for you to scale from desktop responsiveness to the iPad or the mobile versions. And since we're discussing this, an example of how this works would be great. And I'm going to use an example of Twitter app here, which we all use a lot, right? So I'll just, go to the developer tools here. And this is some like random page I've opened here. So now Twitter is a responsive web application. And if you look at it, this, like, let me go back first of all. This is the desktop version of it. You see it's built into different components, right? This is side nav is this one component. Then you have this header thing here. And you have this feed. Then you have the search filter as one component. This what's happening is another component. So it's all componentized. There are so many different components in here. Now, you see the side nav and these search filter components here. Now, what is the difference? If you've been using these responsiveness libraries like Material UI, Bootstrap, or if you've been using Flexbox or Grid a lot, you would know that how the responsiveness works. For example, Grid and Flexbox will take care of making your application responsive, which would mean that if it's the desktop version, it should take only half of the space, whereas if it's the mobile version, it should take the whole space, whole width, and then the next component should actually appear in the next line. However, for example, let's say you have an avatar on the top of your screen, and that avatar has this your picture and then the name next to it. However, if you look at it in a mobile version, you would notice that it actually takes a lot of space, and you don't want to show the name but only the avatar. And when the user clicks on avatar, he should be able to see the name and other details like profile or logout, things like that. And that's where you need to decide how the responsiveness should be taken care of in your application. And that's when I would open the developer tools and show you how it works for Twitter, for example. Right. So do you see any difference compared to what it was before? The side nav, right? So you see that the side nav doesn't show the names now. It has only the icons, because it's like a proper UX wherein you have a lot of space in here and you don't feel that things are congested a lot. So imagine if there were names also next to this, and it would have been so difficult to look at the feed, for example, or maybe we would have missed out on the what's happening module or the who to follow module. Now let's scroll this a bit more and see what's different now. This is another dimensions now, and you see that we don't have the what's happening and search filters component, but we only see the feed and the side nav bar. Let's scroll a bit more here. Right. So if you look at this now, this is the mobile version wherein which we were just able to see until here, right? Wherein you have the feed and the icons, but not the search components. So yeah, this is how the responsiveness of your application should be done to ensure that it looks, you see there's no overlapping of any content, and everything is pixel perfect. So if you want to ensure that, you see this icon here, which I'm going to click on, which says toggle device toolbar. So let's click on this and let's just scroll this a bit towards right. Right, so let's start from the, for example, here, or let's just open iPad. Right, so you see this is the iPad version, and all the things as before are coming in here. And the dimensions are also mentioned in here. So you can, check the responsiveness of your application by searching for anything from here. Now, if you want to check it for an Android phone, for example, this is how it looks. And you see now we don't even have the left, the side nav that was coming, but instead it comes here. And if you click on this icon, then it comes as a drawer to you, right? It doesn't appear right away on the screen. And again, for iPhone Pixel 2, it would be different dimensions. However, if you want to ensure that, let's just undo this. Right. If you want to ensure that it's not even an iPad, it's not a phone also, it's not a desktop, but it's somewhere in between. For example, in here. Now, you want to ensure that, this is the dimensions, this is the exact dimensions for which you want to apply a media query, for example, to ensure that the responsiveness is proper and this design appears as this for this dimensions. In that case, you can also check that by, just clicking on responsive here and then applying whatever, dimensions you want to apply. So yeah, the dimensions would change accordingly. And then inside the media query, you can just define min width, max width, and then apply whatever designs you're trying to apply. So now the next question comes in, which is why to care so much about responsiveness when people have apps running in their phones, and apps are built just like apps, right? And we have web applications which are either running on desktop or iPad. Then why take the effort of making a responsive web application when you have to follow so many approaches, like go from a mobile and then do it for iPad, then do it for desktop? You also have to ensure that you take care of all the different dimensions, because one dimension got missed and it might screw up your application, right? So this comes into picture when we talk about PWAs. That's the next topic, which is progressive web applications. Now, let's discuss first of all what are progressive web applications. So imagine having a web application and a native app for your website. And now look at the double effort. For example, I'm a React developer or I'm an Angular developer, and I don't know Android or I don't know Flutter at all. But I do want to build an application for my website also, right? For my whatever product that is. I want to do the app also and the web application also for that. In that case, I would really prefer for something which does the same thing which I've done on the website in an app also. And that's what progressive web apps are about. You would have your web application served as an application, as a mobile application. It has almost all the features of a native application, just like that works. For example, push notifications, or PWAs also have offline rendering. We'll go into that and talk about it. But yeah, you also have push notifications. Now, you might be wondering that why are people still developing native applications then, if they don't need to, if they have this option of PWA, why do they still use native applications or create native applications at all? So that's where this idea comes in, that when you have applications which are dealing with a lot of gaming stuff, for example, everybody's favorite PUBG, right, which is a lot into news these days. So for such applications, you would not want to have a web view of it and then the same PWA for that inside your mobile. But that also doesn't mean that PWAs cannot handle heavy stuff. For example, Netflix, right? Netflix is a PWA. The Netflix, the app that you use, Twitter app that you use is a PWA. So all of these are, progressing into PWAs. And let's talk about the features of PWAs now. So the best feature that I like the most is the add to home screen feature. And let's look at this example, which is given right here, right? So this is this website which I've opened in a browser on an Android mobile, for example. And when I open it for the first time, it gives me this prompt to be allowed to add to home screen. So this would mean that, first of all, this is a PWA because it is asking me to add it to the screen, to my home screen. And after I do that, it would just add it as an application to my Android phone. And then I don't need to go to the browser at all to ensure that I'm looking at this application. I'll just open the app from the icon that I've just placed on my home screen, and it works like all the other regular, native applications. Also, if you're wondering that is that the only option to download your app, the PWA, in your phone, or you can get it from Play Store also. So PWAs can be uploaded to Play Store also, App Store also. In fact, after some time, the AdSense and AdBlock, whichever you use for example, WordPress, all of these would be available for PWAs, and it will soon be deprecated for the native applications. So that is one interesting thing around PWAs, as Google supports PWAs a lot. So yeah, this is the Android version of getting the add to home screen prompt. Then if you're looking at a website in a browser on a desktop, for example, right? So Twitter is the great example for that again. So yeah, you're looking on Twitter from your browser, and you get this plus icon in the top bar here. When you click on that plus icon, it says, do you want to install it as an app and then never come to browser to open Twitter, but only you always use it as an app? So you click on install, and now you would have it installed inside your system, and then you would never want to need to go to the browser to open twitter.com, and you can just allow the notifications. And if this is my applications, right, all of my applications. So if I just search for Twitter here, you can see that now I'm going to use it as an application instead of having to go to the browser and then be able to use it. So now I can use it as an app, and it works similar to how a native application would work. So yeah, that's how we have PWAs working in the add to home screen functionality. Now, if you are interested in exploring more about add to home screen feature, you would want to see that do all the browsers support it, because it seems like quite a thing, right? And we are not sure if all the browsers would support it. In that case, you can just go to caniuse.com, and from there you can just check for A2HS, which is add to home screen, and you would get to see how many browsers support it and how many do not. And also for the case where the browsers do not support it, right? I've written a blog on this, which I'll share by the end of my talk, wherein you can add custom A2HS, custom add to home screen functionality to your applications in case the browser doesn't give you the prompt. For example, Apple, right? Safari browser does not give you the prompt to install your whatever web app you have as a PW, as the app inside your phone. In that case, for example, in the case of Safari browser, you would want to add a custom add to home screen functionality. And that's where this really comes into picture when you're trying to add a, when you're trying to add a custom add to home screen functionality to your application or your web app. The next feature that comes into, I've shown you this. The next feature that comes into picture is offline rendering, which is again a great feature of PWAs. Now let's talk about this current screen that you have a bit later, but let's first focus on how the browser responds when we have our internet ditching us in between. So let's assume that I go to a website, but there's no internet. It turns out that the internet is not working, and what do we see next? We see this no internet thing, and we see that this Chrome Dino, right, wherein we'll start playing the game if you're interested. So that's the default browser response when we don't have the internet. However, it's for huge applications, it's not very friendly to let their new user know just that no internet, and you would want to give them a custom message saying something like Twitter says something went wrong, right? And this would denote that the internet is not there. However, the static part of the website or the web app, which is cached due to the offline rendering feature of a PWA, is still visible. So now you might be wondering, how does the browser render the static content if there's no internet? So like I said, because of PWA, this static stuff is cached, and that's what you're able to see here. However, whatever in the feed comes live and needs internet regularly, that in there you just show a custom message, something like something went wrong. So this is a great feature for giving a custom, user output whenever you don't have an internet, a good internet or internet working at all. And this is one non-PWA website if you're interested. So, you can go in here, and if the internet goes off, just check, and it would say no internet, and just play the game. Right. So that's about the offline rendering feature of PWAs. Now, about the technical side of it, right? So how does it work? So when you don't have internet, there's this main thread, first of all, which is trying to get all the data from the server. For example, on Twitter, it's trying to get all the different tweets from different users or the user accounts or the search filters or the trends which are available on the right of the screen. Right. So if there is no internet, what happens? In that case, there is this other thread running. There are actually two threads running in that case. The other thread is the service worker thread, which goes to the server, takes in the static content, caches that for the first time, and then even if your internet is not working and the main thread cannot bring back anything, you have your service worker thread, which has the cached content, and you get to see that. So yeah, that's how service workers, which was covered in the previous session also, work in this case of PWAs. So moving on, we've discussed these features already. Service workers would allow you to cache the network request. That will first of all obviously improve performance a lot because you're not making a call every time you need to get some data. And it also provides offline content, which was available through the service worker thread. And we also have push notifications in a web app, which works exactly like native applications. So for example, you have your order coming in from Zomato or Swiggy, you would have the notification arriving for that even in a PWA, not just in native applications. So yeah, that's how PWAs really help you to build applications just like native applications, but with features like add to home screen or offline rendering and push notifications also. Moving on, this is where I start talking about web components, which is something that we'll look into the code also for a bit. Now, these are two different framework projects. Let's assume, you can choose any framework to assume. So I'm taking an example of the first framework being an Angular framework, for example, the second one being a React library, for example, right? And I see that I have different components in the first framework. And I really like this cup component in here, the red background with the cup on it. And I really want to use it in my React application also that I'm building now, because maybe there's the same requirement that I had in the previous project, which was an Angular project. So now I simply want to pick it up from here and just use in my React application. But is it like, can we do that? Because otherwise, why would we even need two frameworks if it's so easy to switch components from one framework to other? Then why would we even need different frameworks? Right. So in that case, when I was building this red cup component, right, if I was smart enough to decide that maybe I might need it in the future, so I better build it as a component which can be exported and which can just compile to all JavaScript, which any other framework also understands. So it should not be just Angular code, a lot of Angular code which React might not understand, for example. So the idea is I should build it as something which can compile down to JavaScript, and then any framework or even vanilla JavaScript project should understand what I'm doing in this component. So that's the idea of web components. And we're going to talk about how web components help us to, use one component from one framework, irrespective of whatever design it followed. It should be totally framework agnostic. And then we pick it up from there and use it inside any other framework. So a very layman, definition of this from like what I would like to, better understand it with is that this is something I want to use and I'm interested in, and I want to create a reusable piece of it so that I can share it with my, in my other projects, or maybe with my colleagues, or with my, just push it to NPM repository so that everybody can use. For example, a color picker component, right? Everybody might be interested in a color picker component. So that is something I would want to, push to NPM repository and make it available to everyone. And I built it with Angular, but you can use it in your Svelte project also. Right. Now, looking at the official definition of it and try to understand like bits and pieces of this whole big definition that we have, right? So it says that it's a set of web platform APIs, which would allow us to create custom components, which would have our own functionality that would need in the component. Reusable, that's the whole idea. We are trying to create reusable components. Then we would have encapsulated HTML tags so that, we can use it inside web pages and web apps, Now, what does encapsulated here mean? Now, this is something very interested with web components. The basic idea, we'll discuss more about it, but the basic idea about this is that we should be able to, whatever styles we have in our web component or in the consuming application should not leak out or inside of the web component, right? So it's very important to keep it an isolated bundle of a component which has this particular functionality, which is used by the consuming application. So, and it says that it follows some web component standards, which will work across modern browsers and also work with, any JavaScript library or framework that works with HTML. So if you look at the specifications now, which is the 4 standards that web component standards is mentioned in the definition also. And these are those standards, right? So first of all, HTML template. Now, if you worked with Angular, you would know ng template, wherein we would enclose any HTML that we want to, render only if we are going to that component is when we would place it inside that. So in case of web component, we would just use the template tag. Inside that, we'll put our web component view code, the HTML code of it. And then even if we have any images or videos rendering inside our web component, they would only be shown when we actually, go to that component. Next is Shadow DOM. Shadow DOM is where all the encapsulation comes into picture. So we need to ensure really that our web component does not have styles leaking out. So for example, if in my consuming application, if I do document dot query selector all, and then I'm trying to get all the nodes with this particular class, it might be a case that this class also exists and conflicts with the web component and the consuming application. In that case, you would not want your style to leak out of your web component. You would want to ensure that it only remains inside the web component specifications. And that's one of the case why we struggle sometimes, trying to override the styles of a library that we are using. So that overriding process whole comes into picture because your component is isolated and it is encapsulated. Then we have custom elements, which we'll talk about a bit later because that's like the main concept of web components. And then we have ES modules, wherein we can import the modules inside modules to be able to work with web components. The last standard, which is no more a standard actually, is striked off, and the reason for that is the way we would use frames and frame sets to import documents within documents is something which was decided to have as a standard for web components, but was not possible because of many browsers being not able to support it due to multiple imports, and then priority came into picture. So we don't have HTML imports anymore as a web component specification. Now talking about custom elements, now I say this is the most important part of web components because that's the whole idea of using a web component. So just like we have a button selector, right, which appears in the DOM, or a div tag, just take that as an example. So just like that, I should have this selector for my component, web component, whichever I'm building. That is the custom element. And this should be understandable by the browser. So browser should be able to understand if I say my reusable element, and it should not ignore it thinking that, oh, I don't know what is my reusable element. I just know divs and buttons and whatnot, right? So in that case, custom elements come into picture, and it's the main part of web component specifications. So we'll have a look at how we can, build custom elements quickly. And I'll be going a bit fast here because there's a lot of theory going on in here. So if you're interested to know more about, which frameworks support building custom elements, which do not have good compatibility in terms of building web components, you can just go to this website, Custom Elements Everywhere, and that will, show you the percentage-wise compatibility of different frameworks. And if you're not aware of polyfills, it's just about adding a polyfill to your web component so that you ensure that all the browsers support the web component, and you're able to view the web component in every browser. That's where polyfills come into picture. So whenever we are working with web components, a very important thing is to ensure that we have added the required polyfills, and we'll see what those polyfills are. So these two are the main polyfills when we are working with web components or custom elements. These two polyfills are provided by web components package, and we ensure that we add these two so that the web component is supported by all the browsers. And if you're doing it in Angular, you would have another polyfill coming into picture, which comes with when you do ng-add and the Angular elements package, you would have a polyfill. Now that is added, but it still doesn't have support for all the different browsers. And in that case, you still would want to go with these two polyfills that we talked about, right? So ensure that you add these two polyfills, even if you have Angular adding the polyfill for you for your web component custom element. Now, this is one demo component that I've created. It's an Angular search bar. I coded it in Angular. It's a regular search bar which has some placeholder text in there. And I want to use this search bar now inside any of the other projects that I'm doing. So I've pushed it as a component to my npm repository. And if you're interested to see if this Angular code works inside React or any other project of yours, just go and do npm install and this package name, which is @nishugal/search bar component. This will bring in the component for you. Do ensure that you add polyfills, which are native. You'll just find it on the internet, native shim.js and custom elements. And now, just for your demo purposes, you would use it in any other framework, let's say in this case React, and it should look something like this. However, inside the React application, I want to ensure that the text should not be same. I want it to be a bit different in the React code. In that case, I have this input binding happening for the placeholder text. So I don't hard code it, but I always send it from the consuming application. So when I use this component inside this React application, I just enter the placeholder text from the consuming application to be, this which says that, well, let's enter something from this React app now. So that you ensure that, your consuming application has contact and communication with your web component. It doesn't mean that it will totally be isolated and you can't change anything in that. Right. So that's about using your web component inside React code. And you see how it allows you to carry your favorite framework functionality from from your framework, the one that you built, to any other framework for any other user, for example, or for yourself. For example, I could carry the Angular search bar and the form validation from the search bar component from Angular to React. So yeah, that's how web components help you do that. And if you want to try this, I have this demo going on StackBlitz wherein we can see how it works. So I'll quickly go to this demo and we'll have a look at how it works. We can close this now. Right. So yeah, welcome to ng-Kovai. All right. So the idea is that first of all, we build a component which is supposed to be our web component. So I built this hello.component.ts. And please let me know if you are not able to see this properly. I'll just increase the font size a bit. Right, so I've kept it until here. So hello.component.ts is the component which I'm trying to use as a web component. And it looks very similar to any other Angular component. It imports component and input from Angular core package. It has this component decorator wherein we are specifying the selector, template, and styles. We are making sure that it's inline because there's no need to keep different files. First of all, you're going to bundle it. Second of all, you don't actually need to keep separate files for that, because in this case it's a very small HTML. Right? So you have the styles also inlined. And also when you're bundling anything, either your web component or your library, you ensure that all of your template and styles are inlined. Now you see that this hello component is receiving this name property, which I'm using is welcome to then this interpolated value here, right? It's coming from the consuming application with the help of input binding. And in this case, this input binding will be coming from wherever we send it. For example, if you use this hello component inside your app component HTML. So until now, it's a regular Angular component. We are using it regularly inside. If we use it right, we can use it regularly inside this another component, which is a parent component in this case, and then specify the name property, whatever, right? So, or just give it a string, for example. Now, this is a regular Angular component. However, now let's go back. I'll just undo all of this. Right. If we go back now, we have our hello component ready. It has to just show welcome to and the name property, this whatever property has whatever. We go back now, we have our hello component ready. It has to just show welcome to and the name property, this whatever property has whatever value. We'll just show that as it comes here. Now, let's see how we actually build this as a web component now, because until now it's regular Angular component. So let's go to app.module.ts. And this is where all your, building of a web component happens. So you see inside ng module, you have the regular imports array, which gets all the modules for you, declarations array, and an entry components array. Now we'll talk about this a bit later. First, let's go to the app module, wherein you're basically doing all this stuff. You have a constructor in which you can do any dependency injection. Again, dependency injection was covered in one of the sessions today. Now, if you, for example, what we would usually do in an Angular application is that we would have this bootstrap array, which tells the Angular application that this is the component that you would like to bootstrap, right? Now, I don't want to bootstrap a regular Angular component, but I want to customize my bootstrap process. So whenever you want to do that, instead of using this bootstrap array here, you can use this ng-do bootstrap method inside your app module. And what it does is that it tells the Angular application that you're creating a new component, and this component, which is going to be created inside app module, should be the one that should be bootstrapping. So you create this component and you're using create custom element. Now, what is that? So create custom element method comes with the Angular elements package that you use to create any custom elements with Angular. Angular elements is that package. And then you see it provides us create custom element, which you're using here to, first of all, use that component, which in this case is the hello component. And then if you have any dependency injection that you want to provide, you would just say injector and then, whatever injector you have injected here. The one you have mentioned here in the constructor. Now, you see that this LE component, ELE component, is the one that you have created in the bootstrapping of your app. The second thing that you want to do is that register it with the browser. So you've not yet told the browser to, register it to the DOM so that the browser is able to understand it just like another dev element. And that's when the custom elements API comes into picture, which has a define method, which would take the selector. This selector is the one which would be used in place of div or button, whichever your browser understands. And what should it render? It should render this component, which we have just created. So two important steps. Create custom element, which would create a custom element out of our regular Angular component, which is in this case hello.component.ts. Then the second step, which is the second important step, is the one to register it with the DOM, register it with the browser so that the browser understands your element and its functionality. In that case, you would use the define method coming from this custom elements API, and then you would give it a selector, which is mycomp. Now, since this is the one that browser understands, you can't anymore use the hello selector, which is used for this hello component.ts, because the one registered with the browser is mycomp. So this is the one you will be using as the selector of your custom element, and it will render this ELE component which you've created here. Now, you would be wondering that this is an Angular workspace, and how do we check if our web component is working? Because if I use it here inside any components, it would just work like an Angular component, right? So in that case, you see this index.html, which is not not an Angular component. In here, I can actually use my web component that I created because it's the regular HTML file, right? In that case, I can just use this mycomp, which is the selector name we just gave to our web component. And then it needs to get this name property, which should be coming from the consuming app or consuming file, in this case, index.html. And you define whatever field you want to define here. So let's say welcome to ng-Kovai conference, right? So yeah, you see that how your web component is rendering now with the new property coming from the consuming file. So similarly, you can just, you would just need the same line of code here, which we are using in a React application. However, you might need to add polyfills. However, you might also need to, first of all, install it, right? Either from NPM or just use it. If it's given to you in a zip file, for example, just use it locally. Or yeah, and then you should have the mycomp selector available to you. So this is not an Angular app result right now. This is an index.html file result, which is giving you the result from a web component, which shows you this welcome to, which is coming from hello.component.ts, and the value of name property, which is coming from the index.html file, which is the consuming application. So yes, that's about web components, and you can use the same thing in React also to check. And I'll specify the name in the chat to show you how how you can use my component, which I've pushed to npm repository. All right, so last bit, I've also created a code lab if you want to learn by doing it yourself. The code lab would contain information about how you can build a web component, what are the web component standards, how you can publish it to npm. So the process of publishing it to npm is also covered in here. You would also be able to check use it in other frameworks, which would cover two aspects: one in React application, one in another vanilla JavaScript application. So yeah, this is where you can refer to this and use it. And this is the code lab link if you're interested. It's simplebit.ly/msdevcon-web. So you can use this. Moving on, these are some of the great resources that you might want to explore more if you're into web fundamentals. First is the book Web Components in Action. It tells you all about web components, how it was in the beginning not accepted by any frameworks or any libraries or any companies, for example. But then later, how you see now, it's all all you need. You're building web components and using it in different frameworks. Then you have Web Fundamentals, which is here in the developers.google.com, which again you can read for diving deeper into web components, custom elements. So yes, that's pretty much it. And thank you very much for attending the talk.
Okay. Okay. So, hi everyone. So first of all, thanks for joining. Thanks for joining on this Saturday. I appreciate your interest to learn some cool things in Angular. So thank you for joining us. So this is our second edition of ng-Kovai. So today my topic is let's optimize your Angular app. So I've been into Angular development for 2.5 years, and yeah, so as a beginner I did some mistakes. So everyone learn through mistakes, which affects the performance. So I thought initially it's just a single piece of code, but it crashes the whole application. So I just wanted to share some of the Angular performance I did. So I'll just share it with you guys, and so I'll just start off with a question like why performance is very much important. Because however you built an application, so let's say I'm in the future I'm cloning an application like Twitter, like Nishu said, I'm just going to clone the application, but I didn't able to perform. The performance of application is not too good, if you clone Twitter also, if the performance is not good, nobody is going to use it. So basically you have to build an application which is better than Twitter, so that's when the people will use it. So the performance is very much important. So even if you bring the same UI UX, whatever thing you bring, if the performance of the application is not too good, nobody is going to use it. So whenever you as a developer, whenever you write a single line of code, you should think it in a huge volume. So now if you're writing a code for only let's say only 100 number of data is going to be 100. So let's say in future it's going to be 1 lakh or 5 lakh. So how that piece, how that line of code is going to perform, like every developer should keep in mind whenever you write a single line of code, make sure like it also handles for a large number of data. So yeah, so that's why performance is very much important whenever you build an application. Yeah, so before getting into the actual slide, so just a small introduction about me. I'm software engineer at Kovai.co, so around 2+ years experience. And yeah, and after some time, just completing the feature was not just coming to office and completing the features was not very interesting. So I started to contribute to the community by writing blogs and answering to Stack Overflow and giving tech talks, etc. So you can. So I also write blogs in Techni 360, and these are my handles, social handles. And if you want to know more about me, you can visit my portfolio, suhas.ninja. Yeah, so this is just a small introduction about me, and this is the agenda. Like for only, I think small three things we are going to see: small things matters, regular anti-patterns, and final things to mention. So in small things, so it might be a single, simple thing like ng-for, but sometime, that ng-for would impact your performance, and some of the regular anti-patterns we used to do in change detection ng class. And final things to mention, I think I have a demo for small things matters, but regular anti-patterns and final things to mention is when you do it in a large enterprise application, it will, it will definitely increase the performance of your application. Yeah, so small things, big difference. I'll jump on to the demo. So let me share the VS Code. Hopefully you can able to see the VS Code. Let me open this app. It was 4,200. Yeah, so I just did the application, so instead of showing it in presentation, I thought it would be good to show it in code. Okay, so here you can see it's just a small div, nothing much, ng for a block. So what is that blocks? If you go to the respective TS, you can see this blocks is initialized, it's some name. It's just an object with a name with some atomic scope. This is our Koi.co products, and I have a button called refresh, and it's while clicking the function is being called, and while it's being called, I'm just reassigning the object. So let's say this can be compared with an API call. So I have an object, and if you in a real-time scenario, like you will call an API and you'll just reassign something to this object. So that's fine. Everything looks good, and so this is just ng-for, and I'm able to see the list of block sites and some 4 products. Okay, so let us go to the DOM. I think you understood the code. It's just nothing much, ng-for and a button. And if I go to the respective DOM, and if I just inspect, so here you can see these are the 4, 1, 2, 3, and 4 divs. So atomic scope is doc360, serverless, and doc360. So if I switch to VS Code in this array, you can see there is only 2 things are common: atomic scope and doc360. But serverless and doc, this is only 2 things different. But if I just click refresh, you can see the whole DOM is being manipulated. So DOM manipulation will impact your performance. So this is just only 4 columns. So let's say you are showing 5 lakhs of data in a grid, and you're doing an API call and you are reassigning. Basically, it will it will re-render the whole DOM. So which is not a good thing. Basically, you should not manipulate your DOM. So if you manipulate your DOM, it will impact the performance. So this is just a simple thing I came across. Yeah. So in a grid, I want to show an 1 lakh data, and if I do this ng-for, the application was hanging, and I was not sure like why it's happening, and then I found out the solution. Like yeah, it's because Angular doesn't know whether this data has been populated already. So that's the main problem in Angular. It doesn't track by actually. It doesn't know whether this data has been already loaded. So how it can be tracked? So in Angular we have a, so let me come on this thing, control KC, and let me uncommon this solution. So how it can be solved? So the same thing, guys. So ng-for and a single button, and there's a new thing called track by. So what is this? So basically we have a function. So track by, you have to write a function in TS, and if you go to the function, you have to it will get the index from the ng-for and the item. It just returns the index. So what is the main purpose of this function is Angular now know which data has been loaded. So let's say the only differences in between these two objects is serverless 360 and doc360 here techmeet and the ng-Kovai. So it doesn't need to load these two again. So using this track by Angular, no, like it has been already loaded, so I don't need to load again these things, and I only need this name and techmeet and ng-Kovai. So that's the main use of this track by function. So if I just save this, and if I again go to the DOM, and here I can able to see the four divs, and if I just click refresh, you can see only two DOMs has been refreshed. This two remains the same. And if I click refresh again, also the track by function it won't re-render the DOM. But if I didn't put the track by, upon every click, no, the DOM will get manipulated. So this is a simple trick, guys. I think so this improved my performance in an application. So when you have large number of data, this will impact. So yeah, so if next time if you're using ng-for, try the track by, and let me know how it is being impact your performance. So the next thing is the second thing is functions. So many of them like call the TypeScript function directly from the HTML template. Yeah, you can use you can call function in a click event, so that's fine. But let's say you have to sometimes in your you have to calculate something. So basically most of them so let's say that's an enum coming in, and you have to get the string. So basically we'll write a function directly in HTML, and we pass the enum, and it will return us the respective string. So there'll be some cases you'll be directly using this function. So is it good actually? So if I go to the inspect, so there's nothing much in this blocks function. So if you go to TypeScript, it's just console log, and it just returns the first object. So that's it, nothing much in this blocks. So the main thing is I think we would expect only function call should be once, right? So if you click functions, it keeps on called. So this is not good because this function keeps on triggering get block. So you should never write a plain function in this in this plain HTML template. So it's not good. So let's say in this function you have an you have a complex logic, and that complex logic if it runs for every minute or every second, the probably like the application will hang, and it will also impact to the performance. So never ever write a function like this. So if you want to do the functionality, go for pipes. So what is a pipe? Pipe is it's like it is used to transform the respective value. So it is also kind of function, like you'll send an input and it will give you the respective output. So nothing much, So the same thing, I'm passing in value. So it's basically an array. So it's basically an array, and sorry for any this is just some boilerplate code. So I'm just showing the example. So if of value, like I'm just returning the return value of 0.name. So it's the same thing. So this blocks will go as an input here, and it will give me the first thing. So if I save and if I inspect, and if I go here, and if I go to functions, you can see only one time the function has been called. So by using pipes, I can able to avoid these kind of things. Pipes are very much useful. You can write some piece of code, and you can use it for date time conversion, and let's say you have to pass an enum and you have to get a string. You can use a pipe for it instead of putting star ng if in the template. You can just pass the input to the respective pipe, which will give you the respective output. And yeah, and the pipe is it's a kind of cool concept. And there are also two types of pipes, in pure and impure pipes. So that's difference. A small difference would be so whenever a change detection occurs, pure pipe, it won't re-render. So let's say if for every change detection you need to call this pipe, you have to make this pipe as impure. So you have to just give it as false. Yep. You can also explore more about pipes in the blocks. Yeah, so whenever you want to write a function in the template, just use pipes for it. So that's the one of the cool technique here. And the next thing is RxJS. So today we saw about RxJS. So the main, the main thing we do is using the behavior. We use behavior subject, and we actually subscribe it actually. So there'll be an observable, and you just subscribe it, and we'll just get the value. So that's totally fine. But let's say if you so here it's just a timer running using an RxJS thing. So let's say if you don't unsubscribe it, so let's say there are around 100 components and you are using 100 subscribe, and if you don't unsubscribe it, so definitely this will lead to performance impact, and also it leads to memory leak actually. So whenever you subscribe it, you have to write an ng on destroy. So ng on destroy, basically it will you have to implement it in the component, and you can create a subscription. You can create a subscription and you can able to unsubscribe it actually. And there are a lot of ways you can unsubscribe it. You can so that's a whole different topic in RxJS. You can unsubscribe an observable or subject and behavior subject in a lot of ways. But just keep in mind, whenever you subscribe anything using subject or behavior subject or observable, just make sure you unsubscribe it, and just unsubscribe it. It won't lead to memory leak. So these are the some small things which I did as a mistake during my initial development process. So this is just a small thing. So let us go back to the PPT. Yeah, so yeah, the first thing in small things we saw is ng-for. So just use drag by if it's necessary, and don't ever call a function from HTML template. Just go for pipes, and yeah, whenever you subscribe for it, don't forget to unsubscribe. So that's the three main things we learned in small things matters. The next thing is regular anti-patterns. In regular anti-patterns, like we use change detection. So yeah, change detection, so what is change detection in Angular? So whenever you do some changes in your component, this change detection will trigger actually in Angular. So whenever you do an API call or whenever you send an input to the component, so whenever there's a click in a component, button click or any other clicks, so the change detection happens for the respective component. So sometimes you can also do it manually using a change detector ref. So let's say if there's a change in a component, you can also use let's say you want to detect whether the change detection has been happened. So most of the times developers use change detector ref dot detect changes. So never ever use that. Use mark for check. So let me say you why you should not use it. So let's say we have two methods, and we have we have a tree components like 275 etc. So let's say if you use detect changes, and if I'm going to do a change for this component like the top bottom, the change direction happens for all the components. So it goes from bottom to top, and it will change direction happens for every component. So that's not good, right? So if you use mark for check, if you do change for the top bottom component, it will happen on the root level. So this is the best thing in change detection. So if you're using change detector, don't never ever use detect changes. Go for mark for check. So this is the basic difference between detect changes and the mark for check. And the next thing is ng class. So ng class is it'll be useful whenever you have a condition. So let's say if it's true, I want to render this class, and if it's false, I want to render this class. So most of the time we use ng class for it. But I think it's never use ng class. Just use class. Instead of that, you can also use ng if before if it's necessary. Let's say ng if true, use this class, and ng if false, use this class. So that would be a better approach. So I'll say why, because in ng class, so there'll be multiple arrays. And in ng class it uses a class called iterable differs, which will compare an array, and it will reiterate the array, and it will split it into what's the element added and what's the array has been removed, what's the element has been removed, and what's the index has been changed. So let's say the index will also change in that respective array, or removed, some elements have been removed. So basically it will iterate, it is a kind of iteration, and you can also give two or more elements in ng class, and there will be multiple arrays, and it's a kind of iteration, and it's a kind of it actually leads to the DOM manipulation actually. So never ever use ng class. Just use class and write a CSS for it and just use it. And also the same happens for ng style. So don't use ng style. It also uses the same iterable differs. So don't use ng style. Just instead of that, you can use style.color or style.background height, background, anything actually, style.max height, style.height, etc. So never use ng style and ng class. You can use style.color. So this change would impact in an enterprise application actually. So let's say I wouldn't show the demo because you won't see much impact in a smaller application. So if you are building an enterprise application, you do this change, and I'm sure it will improve your performance. It will actually improve the rendering speed of your page. And hiding elements, yeah. So in CSS, most of the time developers use opacity 0. So just use visibility hidden. So why? So let's say we have a grid or table which has been 1,000 rows has been rendered in the DOM. So if you give opacity 0, it will remain in the DOM actually. So it's just it won't show you in the page, but it just remains the DOM. But if you give visibility hidden, it actually won't render in the DOM. So as I said, if it does not render in the DOM, there won't be much impact in the DOM, and your page can be loaded faster. So opacity 0, it will be in the DOM, but you won't see it. But in the DOM, so it's not necessary, right? If you don't want to see it, it should not be in the DOM. Yeah, so just prefer visibility hidden instead of opacity 0. Yeah, so that's some regular Andy patterns. So change detection, use mark for check. Don't use detect changes, and never use ng class and ng style because it uses iterable differs, which impacts performance. And go for just class and style.color or style max height, something like that, and opacity, and use visibility hidden instead of opacity 0. And final things to mention, shared module. Avoid using shared module. So why? So let's say so what is shared module actually? A shared module basically, let's say if we are going to reuse reuse components or modules or directives or any other thing, like we'll create a shared module and we'll import all the components, modules, pipes, directive in the shared module. And let's say if user wants to use any pipes or module, he can import the shared module and he can use it. So that's why we create a shared modules. So most of the time it may go wrong. So let me say why. So let's say in the shared module I have a parent module, and if I import the shared module, and let's say I want only pipes or I want only directives, so I don't need all other components or directives in the shared module. I need only pipes. But I have to import the whole module, and I have to use the pipes. So if I have to use 1D pipes, so that's not necessary, right? So I can create a pipes module and I can just import the pipe module. So yeah, so that's why I get this reaction. So it's not necessary to use whole the shared module. So you can create shared module, but sometimes it may lead to some issues. It's the same scenario, the shared module can grow bigger, and the developers can import all the modules in all the shared modules, feature modules, and the package, the bundle package, it goes on increasing. So my suggestion would be create module for a separate, so create module for that component and use that module wherever you want. So don't create a shared module and import all components, all pipes. So just create separate module for separate components, or if you create a pipe, separate module for that, or directive separate module, and just import it. So that's just a good practice. And lazy loading, yeah. Let's say you have in an e-commerce application, we might have a login screen, and after the login we might see the products. So let's say we have a login module and we have products module. So it's not necessary to load the product module in the initial load of login module, right? So if I'm going to log in, it's fine to show only, it's fine to load only the login module. So I don't need products module. So likewise, you can lazy load modules in Angular. So this will impact, this will speed up your application. So you don't want to load unnecessary modules, and there are a lot of loading strategies like preloading strategies. And also you can, there's I forgot the library name, but you can also load your modules based upon the internet speed actually. So let's say my internet speed is very low, so I need only this modules to be loaded. So if the internet is flexible, I need to load all the modules. It's also possible, like based upon your internet speed, you can also load the respective modules. So it's also a separate topic. Yeah, so this will also impact. This will also improve your performance. And bundle size, yeah, just use ng-build -prod whenever you build an application, and explore gzip minification, which will which will reduce your bundle size much faster. And if you want to get a clear picture, so let's say I don't know uh, which component is being heavily loaded in my application. So if you want to get a clear picture of which components being what's the size of this component, what's the size of the service, you can there's a package called the source map explorer in npm JS. Like you can install source map explorer, and it will give a clear insight of what is missing, and which component is being is being large, and how can I reduce it. It gives an overall picture of your application. So you can try out the package name is source map explorer. Like you can go out and try out which will give an clear picture of your application, and which will also help you to reduce the bundle size of your application. Yeah, and that's it, guys. So chat module, yeah, so never so my suggestion would be never use a chat module, like create separate module for separate components and use it. And lazy loading, yeah, you can use lazy load, preload, and you can also load a modules based upon the internet speed. So you can also try out that if you're using a SaaS application. I think preloading strategies, I think that would be very much helpful, and you can also load modules based upon your internet speed. And gzip minification, which will helpful to reduce your bundle size package. And they can also keep budgets. So let's say if my bundle size goes on increasing, if you give ng-build, it gives you a warning, like you can set a budget size in the angular.json, which will be helpful. Yeah, so I know I went fast, so sorry for that, guys. I think it's time, so I went fast. But yeah, so these are the main things I want to cover. But like that, there'll be developers, like they'll be facing different different kind of approaches, different kind of performance challenges every day. Like if you have any if you find anything interesting, you can just post it in the YouTube comments once after this live video. Like it will also be useful for other developers as well as for me. Yeah, and thanks everyone. So thank you for this session. Thanks for joining in this Saturday and making this event successful. And yeah, I think that's all my session, guys. I think we are at the end of the session, so we are at the closing note of ng-Kovai. So this ng-Kovai, like we did this the first edition previous year, and we did this successfully in the second edition this year in virtual. But yeah, that's fine. But yeah, thanks everyone. Thanks for joining, and I also thanks to all the speakers, DJ Pankaj, Kishore, Nishu, Hari, and Jinal Shah for all the cooperation, and for joining and making this event happen. And also we have an organizer behind the scenes, Kupurasu, like he's taking care of streaming this event successfully. So thanks Kupurasu for all your efforts, and thanks to Kovai.co for making this event happen, and thanks for the support Kovai.co. And if you want to if you want to get so we are Sarun said Techme360 is a community, like we do events every month. If you want to get instant invite of our future events, you can go to this meetup.com/Techme360, and you can just join our group if you want to get instant updates of our future events. We also do events on Microsoft technologies, SQL Server, .NET Core, .NET Conf, etc. Like you can join this group to get instant updates. And we also have a Facebook group, Techme360. You can also join in that group. You will also get updates, and we also have a Twitter handle, Techme360. So if you have any feedback or any any suggestions to improve this event, or any things, if you want to convey it, you can also convey it in Meetup comments, or you can also just post it with #Techme360. You can also tag us, and we'll try to improve the event in the upcoming events. Yeah, and yeah, so thanks everyone, thanks for joining. Enjoy this Saturday, have a great weekend. Thank you.